Britisher, I'm not super enthusiastic right now either. I mean, that is the truth. In my heart of hearts, on a scale of 1 to 10, and a 10 would be, Sargon's going to be in police state, and I'm freaking amped up, ready to go. One of the tens for me was when you had your first live stream on your channel. It's like all the dials were up. So today, 0 would be I was dead. I was room temperature. So today I'm somewhere around a 5. It's not like I hate being here. I just have things to do. But this is fun for me, and I miss you and the common sense guy. Monday, I wouldn't call it a debacle. But it was a lot of people here, and I don't know. It was like if you're used to hanging out with some lads at the pub, and then there's like some kind of football tournament or something that comes to town every periodically, and then all of a sudden your pub is swamped. You're there with your boys, but you really don't see them or talk to them anyway. It's all this madness going on, and that's kind of what Monday was for me. Yeah, it was cool. I think 0 did all right. How y'all doing?
We're hanging on. I think we're trying to get over the communal shock of further news from the Count Dankula camp. I think that's what's I think kind of frozen the marrow over here at the moment.
Yeah.
Because for those people who don't know, Count Dankula had his second day in court today. And the next thing we know basically he's coming out of court, and he tweets out, "I'm out, but it's still not over. I'll be back in November." So obviously, once again, they're struggling for time to find any appropriate time to continue this, and therefore the first possible occasion they could find was November. The one thing I would contribute to that is I think I can see why they're always struggling to find any useful times, and that is because they just do not get a move on. If they seem to be going at it at such a leisurely pace, and they're stretching it all out to the max, and of course, at the back of one's mind, one can't help but wonder whether lawyers possibly are getting paid by the hour for the length of time they actually are in court. But it just seems to be such a futile exercise, because the clip they're talking about is less than 2.5 minutes long. What is there, how much is there really that one can be talking about this in court when it comes to evidence and whatever? I mean, as I said in that clip, as you mentioned before, Olga, you march in your witnesses, you swear them in, you have them say their bit, then you march them back out again, then you have your lawyers make their arguments. In this case, they don't even have a jury. So it's just for the judge to make his ruling.
They're talking to one person.
So what on earth is taking this length of time? Because the first time around, it was already hours. And I just sort of felt, well, if this were any sort of private industry, as opposed to some kind of publicly run body, as the courts obviously are, then one would no doubt be a little more efficient. Because I cannot understand what is taking this length of time.
I have a theory on that.
Any thoughts, Mr. Common Sense?
Yeah, I have a theory on that. I personally think the reason why it's taking so long is because they can't get him on anything. There's no law that he's actually broken apart from moralistic points. He hasn't broken any actual physical laws. He's not actually been proven to have anything done that's anti-Semitic. He trained his dog to seek hell, and he said a couple of different inflammatory things. This actually wasn't nothing to do with anti-Semitics, and that's the reason why they can't get him for it. And they're just trying to string it out.
Well, yeah, I guess the context of Sieg Heil does matter, because what they're trying to almost say is that, given that one had said Sieg Heil, that's it. Whereas, of course, Sieg Heil and Nazi salutes are used in all sorts of contexts. And if you're making a movie and you've got some people who play Germans, they will do Nazi salutes.
Right.
So if the context obviously matters. So the only thing that could turn a Sieg Heil and the Nazi salute really into something reprehensible would be if it is, how shall we say, if
a
it
real
is
Nazi?
if it is genuinely heartfelt. If, which I'm sorry, but if you're teaching your pug to look ridiculous, one struggles in a way to see how possibly one can conclude this, particularly if one then looks at the rest of Dankula's channel.
Yeah.
I mean, here is somebody eating a hamburger as an argument.
And a cow in the background.
With the cows in the background. Here is a man eating a hamburger as an argument for somebody who is trying to have a debate with him on veganism.
Big old fat one too.
It's bleedingly obvious that here is somebody.
Didn't he also give his pug some of it as well?
Yes, the pug also ate a hamburger. Yes, I think it was a quarter pounder, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Buddha is very often worked into his jokes. Hey, I got a little breaking news here, boys. Y'all feel like inviting the first ranker in? He feels like swinging by.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
Yeah, he's laid back. I'm gonna send him the link.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
What's the breaking news
to say about this? But Brett, that can't be. I guess it could be overstated. Anything can be, and that's oversaid. But it can't be overstated. If you have a Nazi there, going Sieg Heil, Sieg Heil, but then what about what I just did? I just said it in a deep voice while I Sieg Heil, demonstrating what a real Nazi may do. Does that automatically make me bad?
Well,
and then it seems like it depends upon the sect you're in. You see what I mean? Because I don't know if you've seen it, but we just had a late night host, Colbert, come out, did the Sieg Heil thing. Yeah. We have all these comedians that say there's no way. There's like a rape joke. It's rape joke territory to these lefties. I don't know, to these crazy people, the SJWs, I should say, because not all lefties are SJWs. But they do it, and it's okay. So I guess it depends upon the sect. Because Milo's Jewish and gay, but apparently he's an anti-Semitic homophobe.
Well, you know the reasons why, don't you? Because they're both Dankula and Milo are on the right-hand side of politics. They're slightly conservative. They have the wrong think, as we always say before. That's literally all it is, because they have slightly different political motions and ideas, and they're trying to go against what they're trying to say. Anything that's being portrayed as anything that they can use to disintegrate their arguments by not engaging in the arguments, they're going to use. It's just as simple as that. Hello, First Ranker.
1, 2, 3 testing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Wonderful. I am just. I'm very well. I feel very well today. I went to see David Gilmour's Return to Pompeii, and it was they played some very good songs, and it has made me into a slightly happier person now.
David Gilmour, that's Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yes, it's the guitarist from Pink Floyd. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just saw him live today?
No. They made it into a movie and they showed it on the cinema.
Oh, okay.
And they showed it only this evening.
That's right.
Well,
yeah, I like Gilmour. I really like The Orb. It was a strange project he got into in the 90s. The Orb. It was just basically dance music, repetitive, psychedelic dance music. Pretty cool.
Yeah, he did a really good job. He looks a bit tired now that he's gone and become older, but he doesn't look like he's about to kick the bucket.
Got to be in his 70s, man. And you imagine the lifestyle, even if you were straight-laced, didn't do drugs, smoke, even cigarettes, you know what I mean? You live in that lifestyle of, just listen to Jackson Browne, The Loadout. Because it's all it is. You get on a plane, you get on a bus, you get on a taxi, you get in a limo, you go play your sets, you stay up all night, you sleep all day, you hurry up and do right, put your, it would be so grueling, man. And us fans sometimes can be heartless about it because all we know is we expect to see them in Reykjavik or wherever the hell's close to you. And we don't care if they're tired. We just want to see our show, right? So I think it takes a lot more out of these performers than we like to let on. Probably one of the hardest jobs on earth.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, I'm not sure it's necessarily one of the hardest jobs on earth. I mean, I think, you know, putting on in the scales, being a multimillionaire musician going around the world, and then on the other side of the scales, being a coal miner in China or something like that. I think the coal miner might win.
I don't know, Brett. It would depend. Now in China, maybe, but like a coal miner here, I don't know if Captain Coalpile's here, because I'd ask him to tell me what he thinks. If I honestly believe, if I was to compare a coal miner in West Virginia with Steven Tyler and what they've gone through throughout their life, you know, that has weighed on them in a way that really impacts, you know, how long you're going to live, how good you feel. Man, I don't know, Britt. I would say that rock and roll lifestyle, it's killed so many people. Young, just like coal mining. No, good point. And yeah, and then there's a laughing. Here's the thing, though. The reason I stand firm to that, and why even with that analogy will stand up for the millionaire rock star, is because I've seen it dwindle so much. When I was in school, there were a lot of kids with black cases, you know, with their trombone and their trumpet or their drum or whatever it was that they had. And a lot of people were in band and choir and did these things. They were thespians. And yes, sometimes the full-on Giacomos that did do nothing but sport, which I also, to say sport, would laugh at, but it was, you know, it was just because they couldn't get the part for the play is why they were laughing. Actually, they wanted to be doing their lines with the pretty girl. Anyway, but that's being downplayed now, and so I think it's important that we say no. It's a hard life to be a performer, even though that they're ridiculously when they get to that level too, Brett. Because let's face it, what about? Let me put it this way. I can even mention somebody, Jeff Darnell from the Mountain Goats. I'm not going to say he's not, you know, comfortable, I think is the word that we use. Definitely not rich, has to tour, you know, doesn't have the money to do anything but either fly on a commercial airplane with all the stops and whatever it would be, you know what flying commercial is, or being on a tour bus or driving his damn self. And then you have the grind of 4 nights a week, you know, playing till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Heck, he's written songs about it. And the toll is taken. Okay, that's it. I'll stop off my soapbox about defending the liberal arts and the art, you know, the social sciences and art appreciation classes and all of these things that are just falling by the wayside of, oh, why you want to waste your time over on the left side of the college? And you don't have to be an insane communist lefty to go to that side of the college. It's a little more difficult if you're not. If you were me where I was. But anyway, there you go. Yes, the rock star has a tough life, Brett.
Yeah, I would like to put my little 2 cents into that, where I would have to agree with Ogre, but only to a point. If you're doing the touring, then yeah, and you're doing touring for like 6 to 8 months a year, and for how many other years and whatever, yeah, fair enough. They're going to have it hard for that length of time. But it's when they're not touring, when they're not, and they can have that comfortable lifestyle beforehand when they can rest on their laurels. That's where it juxes, because then you've got the coal miner that's never going to get that comfortable bit in life, so it has to work day in, day out. Where if you are touring for, go on.
No, sorry, mate, sorry.
No, I was going to say, if you are touring, like if you're doing it for 8, 9 months, you're only doing it for the 8, 9 months. Yes, it's going to be bloody hard in that period of time, because you, as you said before, you're going to be doing your rehearsing, you're going to be doing your shows, you're going to be going to bed late, you'll be getting up early because you've got to do your press releases and everything else like that. So I can imagine it is a grueling lifestyle, but it's only for 8 to 9 months of the year, and then you can go away on holiday or do whatever or relax for a little bit. It's not a constant day in, day out grind for the rest of your life.
I know what the Brits thinking. You got to do all the things you mentioned. Plus, you got to sleep with 22-year-old chicks that look like they go to the gym for 5 hours a day. You got to eat at the best restaurants in town and sleep in the freaking best feather beds in the nicest motels around the world. And I got to say this too. Can anybody see the chat and see what Cole Pile's response to that was? First, he mentioned that he was driving home. That's probably why we didn't see him in the chat. But did anybody see what his
Money
response
for
was?
nothing.
And that is another way of telling me, shut up, ogre. Going
Money
back
for
to
nothing and he
Dire
kicks for free.
Yeah, go back to that. So anyway, so then we got it from the coal miners. Said no, he doesn't believe for a minute that the rock stars got a life as hard as this. Oh, I gotta do that. I gotta do it. I mean, what are you gonna do? I just want to. I want to say this though. Before we had coal miners, well, I don't know. They've been around for a long time, but I would probably say before we had coal miners, we've had bards and minstrels.
Yep.
Back then, it was very tough too. They had guilds in a lot of cases, especially where you lads are from in England. Man, they had, you couldn't just go from town to town and tell stories. You could, but if they caught you and you weren't the real deal, you could get in trouble and be an imposter. They wouldn't really take care of it.
Yeah,
but back, I mean, you had to know. Yeah, you had to know history. I don't know if they had, what would that be? Like pull out a slate, scratch.
You got a chicken scratch it. Just meet your mark.
Oh, am I ruining this, Britisher? I'm having a good time. This has been a good week for me. The whole I gotta say, the Razor Fist always lifts my spirits. I watch his stuff and it does it, but when he swings by, man, that really did something for me. I mean, he was, I don't know what. The guy's something else. He really is. Not only was it some nice cross-pollination, like you mentioned before the stream, some people subbed and got more exposure for our live stream, but it's just, I don't know. It was a good time. Yeah, that wasn't a good segue. Are we going to talk about the news?
By all means.
Because Dankula is news, and I'm the one talking about how we should just kiss the ass of multi-millionaire rock stars.
Yep, precisely.
Well,
yep.
I'd like to talk about something which is new to me, but it's probably been a thing for a while. I saw this commercial for the sports equipment shop called Stadium. I don't know if you have it in the US. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But this new ad campaign was all about how female sports people, athletes, were paid less than men, and therefore you, blue-collar man, must donate money for equal pay in the sports.
Nice.
And
so they're the Black Lives Matter of the sports company then.
Yeah, sort of.
Here's your demands.
And I just sat there going, I make around $800 a month. No, wait, not $800. I don't have time to remake the numbers. I don't make too much a month, and most professional athletes, if not all of them, be they man, woman, or attack helicopter, make more money than me. Why would I give away money to richer people than I?
It's the same reason why I wouldn't leave a house.
Taxes, but that is a good question.
Well, it's the same reason why I wouldn't leave a house to somebody that's not in my own family.
I think I know where you got that from.
I have no idea.
BLM, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I think in this case it kind of ties into pretty much all female sport at the moment.
Yeah.
Because just about all female sport is non-money making. Perhaps with the sole exception of tennis, but even there, they are effectively subsidized by the male game. And in every single case, the argument is always, but we do the same as the men do, so therefore we should get the same money. What is never pointed out is that they don't do the same as the men do. Because what is actually securing the male pay is not their playing the game. it is there attracting an audience. So all the women need to do is attract an audience, and then they will get the same pay. But as long as they're actually only attracting a fraction of that audience, then they will always only get a fraction of that pay. And then they need to start asking themselves, look, A, are we in the right business? Or B, do we need to do something different in order to attract a greater audience? But the claim that simply just because you play the same sport as the men do, and therefore you ought to be entitled for the same money,
No.
that's ridiculous. That is like my claiming that I should get paid for playing football in the park, and I should be getting paid at the same level as some football superstar.
No, let's bring it closer to home, Britt. It's more like you saying, it's more like you right now making a video tomorrow that says, you know, really, I'm being screwed because Sargon gets $6,000 a month on his Patreon. So obviously you lot out there, you are just stingy bat. You see what I mean? That's more like it.
Precisely.
Like, and it's all based on what you said, the crowd that you draw.
Sargon, irrespective of whether I have his number of subscribers and his audience or not.
Right. It's crazy.
And it's ridiculous. But I'm afraid that seems to be the narrative. I mean, I remember on The Daily Show, there was a segment once. This, of course, is the Trevor Noah Daily Show, I believe, not the Jon Stewart Daily Show. And on it was a piece in which the American women's national football team was complaining about how they weren't getting enough money. And they were pointing out how the American men's national football team were getting a multiple of what they were getting. And then they pointed out that they had won the World Cup 3 times. And the men hadn't never even got near the finals. And you just thought that it's a complete misrepresentation of, you know, what the football world actually looks like. The simple fact is that when it comes to the women's football, World Cup, barely a soul watches. And if people watch, they're either relatives or there are people watching to see how spectacularly they manage to trip over the ball. Because trust me, they do, which kind of gives you an idea of the sheer skill level. From what I have heard, when it comes to the supposedly professional women's game in football, colonials somehow insist on calling it, they're actually practicing with 16-year-old boys. That is how practicing is done. So they're playing against the junior teams of clubs because they're roughly up. That is where they actually roughly find their match with 16-year-old boys. So that's the level. Now, how great an audience do these 16-year-old boys in the junior teams of the clubs who are trying to raise talent, how great an audience do they command?
None, hardly.
Virtually none, because who would want to watch that? People want to actually see the elite play. Yeah. And when you actually consider that these people are playing at the level of 16-year-old boys, the fact that they've then got the nerve of turning up on a national television show to be paid the same amount of money as some people who are, I mean, how shall I put it? When you see, any of those footballers, I mean, once upon a time, 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't the case yet. But now with all their nutritional science and all this, every one of those chaps, if they take their top off, they've got a total six-pack. They are absolute athletes. And I'm sorry, they are absolutely the pinnacle of, what you can do physically on a pitch like that. the amount of running they do, the sheer endurance that they show during one of those matches is quite unreal.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. That's what gets me with the soccer players, so the footballers.
That is, that is where the money comes their way. They are streaks ahead. I mean, the one way I once explained it to someone was, if I watch the Olympic Games and I see the women run the 100 meters, I can sit there and I can actually say, well, no, that's unbelievable. That's incredible. Because I know that even at even at my peak, even when I was 20 years old, I would not have been able to come anywhere near those 8 women crossing the line. They would be well ahead of me. But when I see professional women footballers, I just know that at 20 years old, I would have run circles around them. And if that is the case, and that will be the case with most of a male audience, you cannot get them to take them seriously. I'm sorry. It's as simple as that.
I would like to add a little bit to this.
You bloody sexist. I got to say that before we move on.
That's
bloody
fine.
Sexist. You intersectional, microaggressing, just caveman. No, I agree with everything you said. But that's what will happen now when you say things that are just true like that. It's like, oh, it's 2017. Well, that doesn't change what, yeah.
So when you were 20, does that mean 1870 or 1880?
1875.
I think it was 1868.
Okay.
And look, when I asked if you should come on today, he was the one that piped right up. Yes.
Count it back as in, as per the day of the vase sinking. But I don't want to go that far back.
But before we move on from the football bit, I'd like to add on from British's point. The main reasons why women also do not get paid anywhere near the same is due to sponsoring and due to people actually generally watching it, as in on the TV national stage. For every person that was watching it, you get watching women's, you've got about another 100 people that are watching the men's equivalent. That's also true in tennis. Most of the female tennis stars, not unless you're at the top of them, they don't get sponsored very well. Hence why there's not enough money in that sport, as British has already mentioned before. But that's the main reason why people don't get as much money, is generally because there's not any sponsors. And that they're nowhere near as good, to be honest.
Well, I mean, we're back to McEnroe again, aren't we? When he was suddenly put on the spot that one time about Serena Williams. And he said, I'm sorry, but if she would be playing in the men's game, she would be ranked 700. Mm-hmm. And then everybody piled on him from all sides. But strictly speaking, nobody could actually say that he wasn't speaking the absolute truth.
He never backed down either.
No, he handled it
like
really well, though.
Else he's ever done that's crazy in his life. He's the Donald Trump of tennis. This will roll it off his back, and he'll be back at Wimbledon next year. Mark my words.
Now, come now. He's not that bad.
Oh, man. Yeah, of course. Of course not.
Yeah, we actually like him.
I'm not going there with you today, Brent. I'm so stoked because you know what we are going to talk about. This kind of ties into what we were saying about this Michael Bennett thing. But like I said, the only reason I was really even going to bring this up is because I watched a debate with Matt Christensen, and if you want to call it a debate, it really wasn't. They should have had a moderator and timed, because the dude, this Vox, what the heck was his name? Oh my gracious, I'm not gonna remember it now. Mrs. Ogre couldn't stomach it. I had to go out and feed the birds and do some of my chores, and when I came in, I'd missed about 45 minutes of it. So I had sat down here to wrap some soap, and I was like, I said, Mrs. Ogre, should I bother even going back to that? Was it worth it? She was like, yeah, it got old. And what got old is this gentleman that Matt was cool enough to have on his channel. I mean, he made this. This is what killed me about the whole deal, because this guy's trying to make a case. And yeah, I'm still calling him this guy because I haven't looked up his buddy name. I'll do that right now. I'll try to actually talk and think at the same time, British. Let's see if that works out for me. It hasn't in the past. But this fella comes on the show, and what he's doing is he's trying to make a case for basically widespread police brutality. This is what killed me. He said that YouTubers that were in the middle to high ranking in size, so let's say 80,000 and above, would not want to have any kind of person of color on with a dissenting view from theirs. Now, Britisher, no, I'm not quite as quick as you on some things. As I say, I may have the advantage on you and others. So maybe this is one of the things you're a little quicker than me on. We just had Matt on. What color is he?
As well as I can recall, of course. I mean, it's lost in the fog, but I think he may be of a paler complexion.
Okay. He's Caucasian, and so the accusation, among others, I just bring this one up because it was the most boldly ridiculous, was that YouTubers that are white and of a certain stature just wouldn't have people of color with a dissenting view. He's a person of color with a dissenting view. I don't even know what to call what happened. As I said, he had one person saying, let me explain. Matt waiting. And has anybody seen the debate with, or let me see, I got it right here too. Has anybody seen the debate with Nico?
No, I haven't seen that one yet. No,
I haven't seen it yet.
I saw it come up, and I intended to watch it, but I've just not found the time yet.
I don't even know what to say, because I like Matt. I would say, give it a look for what you see. I watched all 1 hour and 13 minutes of this whole thing. I would not recommend that, unless you just are. If you're doing something mundane, as I was at the time, you're doing something tedious, well, go for it. You just want some background noise and to listen. Otherwise, I might even queue up a piece or two of this if I can find a sweet spot, because there'd be no copyright on this. I'm sure Matt wouldn't come after me. But it was one thing after the other from this gentleman, Nico House, and that is, there's institutional racism. Black people are mowed down in the street by police officers of all colors. The police officers are.
May I just interject here? Is that you paraphrasing, or did he actually say black people were mown down in the street?
I'm paraphrasing.
Okay.
What he said is that if he was, this is paraphrasing also, but getting a lot closer. What he said is if he was Michael Bennett, he would run also, because as a black person, he has to think every day that if he comes in contact with law enforcement, they may shoot him, they may kill him.
Michael Bennett, that being this football star who ran away in Las Vegas, I believe.
American, for all of us, our many beloved English followers. Let's call it foosball. Can we do that for my benefit?
Okay.
That way everybody will know what we're talking about. When we talk about this, and it's not soccer, because it's soccer. We usually say, we just said football, and I had to put it in the chat. It's soccer usually. Anyway, foosball. So this foosball player.
So that is the person. So that's the person who we was actually talking about.
Well, he said because this what happened. Some went down in a casino, and apparently this Michael Bennett took off running, jumped some kind of parapet. A fence, a fence, like a concrete barrier, a wall, and went to take off. And the cops seen him going. It was an active shooter event. I'll be honest with you, I didn't look too much into this because Michael Bennett had nothing to do with it. And as soon as they ascertained that he didn't, they let him go. And he was saying they did this because I was black. But they detained a lot of black people, a lot of white people too. Anybody that just ran, which I may have done if there was an active shooter situation, I don't know. But if I was detained, I would have just been like, no, I'm ogre, man. Check it out. I got no gun. And they would have let me go, as they did Bennett. But he's making all these claims. This is the part that's sticky for me with playing stuff, Brett. So I'm not going to play anything because I think TMZ owns all this stuff. But you can clearly hear the cops say, his claim is the cops said, I'm going to blow your MF and head off. And then you have the audio, which you can clearly hear the cop using the F word, but he says, stop, mother effer, stop, put your hands up, put your mother effing hands behind your back. That's what I heard. And that may be paraphrasing by a word or two off, but that's
looking for there was Melonfarmer and melon farming head.
they would say melon farming.
Well, if I may just explain, in the 70s and whatever, because of course this is Britain and we are the holier than thou nation. Over here there was a quite, it's still in existence, the British Board of Film Classification, and they basically get to decide what is allowed to be said and what is not allowed to be said in movies and so on. And in the 1970s, of course, particularly with those blaxploitation movies, there was a lot of, nigger and motherfucker and whatever in the actual text of those films. And the British Board of Film Classification didn't agree with that. But in a lot of cases, you couldn't actually cut it out. It was impossible. So what they insisted on instead was that those words were to be overdubbed. So they would have to find an actor with a similar voice who could then basically put in frigging or something like that, where the word fucking was, in order to sort of try and maintain the sentence. But there was one big problem, and that is they simply couldn't find anything with which to overdub the word motherfucker. And eventually they came up with the solution, and it was the word Melonfarmer. So you would then you would watch one of these blaxploitation films, and you would see someone like Shaft, kick down a door, and he's got his his gun in his hand, and he's basically threatening whoever the other gangster is and telling him that he's a bloody melon farmer. Now, the unintended humor in that was just enough to floor any audience.
Well, and you told me they got some really deep sounding, how was, let me just let you say it. How was the overdub? I mean, what voice was the overdub? Was it a matching voice to the person?
Of course, it never matched. It never matched, because how on earth would you do that? Because you have to have the background noises and everything like that in, which of course you wouldn't get. You would just simply have someone sitting there in a studio inserting these individual words. And it was laughable. But then everything the British Board of Film Classification has ever done is laughable. I would just love to see them abolished, but I'm afraid that that's not going to happen anytime soon. The British government is keen to hand them control of things that happen on the internet, which, yes, that is the sort of qualification a company has got, which is given a further role of censoring the internet. Yes, they came up with Melonfarmer.
Yes.
So Melonfarmer is now one of the most celebrated words in circles who are against censorship here in Britain. Melonfarmer is just a running joke.
Yeah.
This is the Melonfarmer that was on with Matt. Yeah. I don't know if Melonfarmer head works. I mean, see what I mean? I just don't know. So if they were to say, I was going to shoot you in your MF and head, they would say, I'm going to shoot you in your Melonfarmer head?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that's rough. That doesn't even translate. It just doesn't work.
You would get it in the context of sort of an angry policeman, because obviously it's a proper actor, so he's there sort of shouting at him, I'll shoot you in your motherfucking head. But then in the middle of that sentence, the tone would suddenly change. So you'd get, I'll shoot you in your melon farmer head. So it's just absolutely laughable. It was just one of the most cringe-worthy things that the British Board of Film Classification has ever done.
And that's what I wanted to hear, was the interjection of the melon farmer. So anyway, I mean, I can only imagine that you're sit through this. You got a couple homeboys there. It's just anyway. So what was the one for the hated PewDiePie word? What was there? What did they replace the N word with?
To be honest, I don't know. But there will have been something. Yes,
it couldn't be as good as that one. It couldn't be as good as Melonfarmer.
No, Melonfarmer was by far and away the best one.
I don't know. Could it be Tiger?
So everyone was Tom Jones, were they?
Yeah, well, this person's whole point was, I can wrap it up very quickly on this whole, Michael Bennett deal. And they like to call it an arrest. He wasn't arrested. He was detained momentarily while they ascertained that he was just jumping over a fence. His thing was, no, they said they were going to blow my Melonfarmer head off. I'm sorry. They said they were going to blow my Melonfarmer head off, and then maybe they'll lay on the ground and handcuff me. And then when they seen that I wasn't who I was, they let me go. But they did it because I'm 6'4" in black. And I mean, you're just sticking with that story. Now, mind you, that these, including this gentleman here, listen to this whole thing, as I mentioned, his whole spiel is police just, with impunity, shoot down black folks. Now, if it happens to be a black officer that shoots down a black person, it's still racism, because the institutional racism of the police station, the police officers in the United States as a whole, rubs off on the individual police officer, be they black, brown, white, yellow, red, whatever. You dig what I'm saying? That way, and this guy, he not only stuck with that. When Matt was his normal Matt Christensen self, which is understated. I mean, he calls his own stream with Blondie Beauty and the Beta. He doesn't have a big ego. This guy said, well, you're just trying to protect your ego. I mean, it was so ridiculous. What it came down to is he said he called him an apologist for, the alt-right, and said that, yes, he was a white supremacist in some ways. I mean, the whole thing, the only thing he wouldn't say was that he was a liar, because Matt asked him, well, you said I was a liar at this one point in my video. Could you show where I was a liar? So he's like, no, okay, you're not a liar, but you're a white supremacist. I don't. It showed so great. When he couldn't just shout him down.
Matt on again, won't we?
Yes, but when he couldn't just shout,
I'm a terrible person.
Yeah, and I'm gonna leave this off. Let y'all, get your last little things in on this whole idea here. But when it came right down to it, and he couldn't shout him down. He couldn't shout over him. And Matt continued to show that Mr. Nico had no really ideas that opposed or anything like that. He did resort to the, I would say racial attacks. It's an obvious racial attack where he's using his, let's call it victim status, whatever, to turn it around and say, well, I view you, Matt, as a, some kind of white supremacist, which I believe we all know is ridiculous. That's it.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to go first on this, because on the first part of the story, you've got the fact that Mr. Bennett is trying to say that he felt so scared for his life, and the police were going to mow down every black man that they were going to. Why didn't they shoot him? If they were going to mow everybody down, why didn't they shoot him as he was running away? If that's what he was afraid of, why wasn't they going to shoot him as he was running away? And as for having a debate with somebody and actually getting so irate yourself that you end up shouting at somebody else and calling them names on a racial slur when you're trying to prove that they're racist, you've done really well. I take my hat off to you, and I'm going to give you this. You've done really well there.
That's the ultimate accolade, is it?
It is. That's the most I can give him.
The slow clap.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, when it came to this whole affair with this American footballer, it was, I mean, what better way is there to attract attention in a situation like that than being the only person within a crowd who suddenly decides to bolt? I mean, if that isn't the best way of basically singling yourself out for police attention, I don't know what is.
Well, Brett, just to save you, because if somebody sees this later, he wasn't the only one, but everyone that bolted was, detained. So he wasn't the only one. But and they can't say it was all blacks either, because they had black people, white people, everybody the cops seen running in this active shooter situation, they detained. And so, I mean, put it this way, Brett, who would we want the police to detain in this situation?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, obviously the one with the pug.
Oh dear.
Well, I mean, and I want you to go on with your idea, but I just didn't want somebody to watch us later and go, "Oh, listen to the Britisher. You don't even know that there was, he wasn't the only one." But so he wasn't the only one running, but it's not like they singled him out and a lot of other people bolting, as we're calling it, and jumping over parapets. Everyone else that were doing that were detained. It's not like other people that were doing that were let, just to go willy-nilly and run away. Oh, he's a white guy running like bloody murder. Oh, we'll let him go. No, that's not what happened.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's quite obvious that whether you have the one person who bolted, that was what I thought the situation had been, or whether there are several people who bolt out of a crowd and you basically go about arresting those several people. And having established that nothing actually had happened, one thought there was an incident where there was a shooting, but it turned out not to be the case. So eventually everyone was let go because it was established that there hadn't even been a crime. But if you single yourself out like that, if you make yourself that conspicuous, what actually do you expect there to happen?
Right.
It seems to be beyond me how people can then complain that they attracted the attention of the police.
I'm going to add some anecdotal evidence to this from when I was a lot younger and a lot stupider. I used to do a lot of stupid things with obviously friends, as most people do when they're younger. And anytime that anybody used to get into trouble, everybody else used to run away. And when they all used to run, I used to walk. Now, I'm not trying to say that I got away with it all the time for doing whatever I was doing. But 9 times out of 10, the persons would come up to me and ask me what I was doing. And I'll go, well, some kids just run past. Why? What's happened? And then 9 times out of 10, I'll get left alone. But yet, 9 times out of 10, I was probably the one that was instigating it or actually doing it. And the rest were running away because of me. But to add to British's point, if you see that a crime's going on and you run away, the police are going to naturally assume you have something to hide. So they're going to run after you. It's like if you bail out of a car, they're going to go for the driver all the time. So whoever runs, it's like a predator and a prey situation. If you run, they're going to lock onto you and they're going to run after you. They're going to forget everybody else.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's just fairly obvious. And therefore, given that the situation was so obvious, I really don't understand how anybody could basically pick up his complaint, or even better, go on to Matt Christiansen's show and have some drawn-out debate in which he accuses anybody who doesn't agree as being a racist. Because to me, that's just completely laughable.
Well, really, I don't have enough data to fully make up my opinion on this case, but I have to say, on the accusation of racism, that, or rather, I have to ask, wouldn't you think that this could be an example of Sargon's law in play? That if you accuse
Sargon's law?
Sargon's law is if you accuse someone of being a sexist or a racist without having anything to back you up, you're basically you're basically yourself admitting that you're a racist or a sexist. Well, not admitting it, but chances are that you are a racist or sexist yourself.
I don't mean to interrupt you or try and correct you. I'm pretty sure that when Sargon says, or Sargon's law to point out, is not if you say that somebody is a racist, but if you pull somebody up and, say for instance, I say anybody that's black probably has long fingers, for instance. And that's not true, obviously, but say for instance I say that, and then somebody brings that up and goes, "You're only saying that because you're racist and you're homophobic and blah blah blah." That's Sargon's law. They take their own connotations of what you mean and they change it into that aspect, meaning that he then thinks that they could be racist because they're taking your words out of context.
Maybe you're right.
I didn't know that Sargon had his own law named after him.
It's not really a law. He has a couple of phrases, so to speak. One of his favorite ones is that if you call somebody a racist or a bigot, you basically lost the argument because you're trying to dispel the person rather than dispel the argument.
I'll have to find ways of mocking him ruthlessly next time, just for being Sargon the lawgiver.
What was your point anyway, First Ranker? Because sorry, I can completely cut you off.
Let's see here. Urban Dictionary. They always help us over at Urban Dictionary. Whenever an ideologue makes a character judgment about someone they are debating with, that character judgment is usually true about themselves. And here's a quote. Social justice warrior says, "You should always listen and believe. Someone who claims to have been someone who claims to have been sexually assaulted. Logical person. But what about due process and presumption of innocence? Surely, if we always believe the victim, then we're going to assigning the guilt to the accused. Just look at Duke at UVA to see why that's wrong." Then social justice warrior answers, "Wow, you're such a misogynist." And logical person responds, "And I expect I expect that you have just proved Sargon's law."
Which is basically what I said.
Yeah, you were right.
I didn't know there was a Sargon's law. That's a fact. Huh.
As he said, it's from the Urban Dictionary. It's not actually written down or anything, and I'm sure Sargon wouldn't admit to saying it's a law that he stands by.
Oh, I'm sure he has it. He has it on his wall, embedded as in cuneiform, inscribed on clay.
I have to ask Ogre a question.
Yeah.
Is it okay to talk about this in the contract?
Let me see. I got it right here. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I'll get back with you in just a minute or two. Got the contract right here. So what was the question? Is it okay to talk about Sargon's law?
Yeah, Sargon's stuff and Sargon's law if he's not here to defend himself.
Oh, here it is. It says that it says, however, the mighty Sargon of Akkad may represent, quote, Sargon's law, unquote, and any image that he does portray on the internet and or Twitch and or must be old because it says and or Twitter. So etc. is not free license for people ambiguous to him to mention in on live stream. So no, I don't think we can talk about that.
God damn it! I'll just hang myself then.
Good Lord!
Where's the scaffold?
But I just think it's funny too because Matt Christensen. I mean, the Britisher, he's with me. I mean, he's not under any illusions. There's some people that could have as many subs as the Brit would have, and he'd be like, "Oh, I'm Mr. Big Shot." But I mean, a lot of subs is, I would say, once you get to Boogie, 2988 to power the internet. I would say at that point, you can say you got some subs. You know what I mean? You got 4.5 million.
Yeah, just a couple of mil.
But when you're there hovering around, under 1 million, I don't know. I'm with Sophane. I think that you're just a big steaming pile of horse crap until you hit that 1 million mark, and then So I guess that means Mark Dice, Brett. Are we gonna shill for Mark Dice now? We're gonna have a little like a. Do you even know who Mark Dice is? I guess would be a better question. I'm leaning toward maybe you don't.
I know who Mark Dice is. Mark Dice is the maker of those very annoying clips, which I always accidentally sometimes bump into and then immediately try to skip. And then you know what it is. If you're watching it on a television and then the remote control kind of always leads you astray, and you just end up with yet more Mark Dice material.
Yeah, well, he used to be good when he just did the Man on the Street Mondays and. He was really good, but now I don't know, man. To me, Brett, I used to listen to InfoWars every day. I won't even lie. The Trump campaign, InfoWars lost me as a daily listener. Every day I listened to that whole thing. And they lost me because I watched a guy go from right-left paradigm, they're all the same, to Trump can't do no wrong. We should all line up to kiss his ass. Make sure you vote for Trump. He's going to shake it up and make it different. He don't know Trump from Adam. How does he know he's going to shake up or what he's going to do? Anyway.
That is a very good impression. Can you say, I don't like them putting chemicals in the water.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the frogs gay. I don't like them turning the frogs gay. You happy?
Yes,
I love that song.
Happy.
I love that song.
So we'll move along right now. Like I don't always do some stupid voice representing the person that I'm thinking of at the moment. But here we go. Because we're kind of drifting anyway, and that's cool. That's the beautiful thing. I think that's why. Isn't that why we have the common sense guy here, Brett? To keep us from just being like regimented. People think we were Prussian, they call us Nazis or something. These boys stick with the topic and talk about nothing
Everyone
else.
always thinks I am Kraut und Tea.
Oh dear. No.
Is that the newest one? Now you're Kraut and Tea? Now you're German?
Oh yeah, I'm always being told that I am Kraut und Tea.
Wunderbar.
Fuck.
Hey, well, I think
sorry.
you can speak German. Is that right?
Yes, I do speak German. Yes.
Okay. Well, maybe you never know.
Well, it's just one of my other alter egos that I learned to perfect at MI6.
Yeah, because we say speak, but everybody should know we mean you were programmed to communicate in the German language. And well, anyway.
Yeah, he was like Neo. He was
uploaded. But you know what, mates? I wish that at this point, when I brung this up because of what this Nico says to Matt, who we had on, Britt asked the guy to be on. We all here probably know the story. Anybody listening, here's the deal. We had Matt Christensen on our show. Britisher asked him to be on. He was the one that got the connection and got the get, as they say in this kind of weird business. And it was this way. Britt got his attention on Twitter. Hey, mate, we'd like to have you on. Oh, okay, great. Here's my email. But Britisher, how often have we heard that? So he actually did email him. Boom, right away. Oh, yep. Thank you very much. And bam, set up a date. Boom, right on time. I mean, he is, and he even told us, he made it a point to tell us. Do you remember what he told us before the stream? I think we could share that, Brett. Remember how he was like, I believe in, because it was close to the time. We had like 5 minutes left. And I think I was the one that was like, nah, man, we were getting a little nervous right here, Mr. Christensen. And he let us, he was like, well, I'm glad, that you, whatever, but I will always be where I'm going to say that I'm going to be. Oh, man, this whole thing, I don't know, man. I've got no closer for this. I believe that if you do have the time to go to Matt Christensen's channel, I'm not going to link this out here like I do everything else. I'm just not going to do it. In fact, I don't think this is a total joke, but as I look on Matt's channel, as I am right now, where he's linked our live stream, Britt, the live stream, he came on our little show here, man, our little dung heap, and he linked that on his channel. Very few people do that. I don't think Razor did. I don't think anyone else actually has done that. That is, caliber, whatever, that size, that big, that huge, that gigantic, that enormous, whatever it is that he is. And he did that. But on this case, it says this. It says don't in parentheses. In fact, I'll screen share this real quick because it's kind of funny. It says don't subscribe to Nico on YouTube, and then has the link. And just watching what he went through for this, I don't think that's more of the truth than a joke. It's like, well, whatever.
I just must correct you there. You just referred to him as being, one of those people who are gigantic.
Yes,
and I just
over 1 million.
Remind you of your own words there.
Yeah, I contradicted myself, didn't I?
Really big if you aren't at least at over 1 million.
Nope. No, I contradict myself, and it's true. It is true. But let me just say this: we are talking about something much different than even the entertainment side of our relationship, Brett, where you have 13,000 and I have just barely 1,000. We're now talking about someone that has 5,000 subs, I believe 4,700 subs, I believe does Nico, and Mr. Christian has 82,000 subs. So we're talking, many times larger. That openly allowed someone, and the reason he was on here, and it started with
82,000 people have all watched his clip.
No. In fact,
heard Nico tell the truth about Matt Christensen, about what for an abysmal racist he is. Well, I mean, those 82,000 people are just going to melt away, aren't they?
No, there's 14,659 people have actually watched the clip. I'm amazed. I wonder. I would like to see the analytics on this particular clip from him, Brett, because I don't know. You'd have to be like myself, very interested in if there was ever any kind of logic or reason from one side. I'll just be blatant from Nico's side, and just hanging there to the bitter end, wondering if it was ever going to come to any kind of logical discussion. Or you had just diehard fans, one or the other. Because otherwise, it was bloody not the most pleasant thing to. In fact, he even said it. He was like, he told him at one time, he was like, listen, man, I'm second from kicking you out of here because this isn't fun for anybody. When he said that, I was like, damn, man, you hit it on the head. Because it was, at that point, it was like, it was an academic exercise. You dig it? It was just something I was doing to find out the truth. That was it.
And find how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Well, and I found the truth. The light shined in this Mr. Nico house and nothing. The only thing he had is, oh, slavery, Jim Crow, oh, my skin. Dr. Martin Luther King would slap this Negro in the mouth and say, get your act together, boy. You are from my race, from what I represent. You don't go around telling people what they are from the color of their skin. That's what they're doing to us. That's what would happen if Martin Luther King could rise from the grave and see this gentleman's argument and had a few minutes with him. I don't think he would be very happy with what he's saying at all.
Speaking of Martin Luther King, have any of you guys heard of this television show called The Boondocks? It's an animated show, and I think it's for youngsters. I haven't seen.
Yeah, I know of it.
Yeah. And there is this scene when Martin Luther King enters a church, and there are loads of people partying, and he goes,
"That one, yes."
He goes, "Everybody, be quiet." And I guess I can use some slurs when I'm paraphrasing. And he says, like, I had a dream that people would judge each other on the colors of their character, but as I gaze on this crowd of people, the only thing I see is niggers.
I knew when you said Boondocks, I kind of knew. There we go. PewDiePie, I blame the only thing I blame the bastard for is being the king of YouTube and then using that word, and now it's just going to be. Mark my words. I think this may be it, Britisher. That may be a little bit of a tipping point that we need to say, nah, look, even PewDiePie slipped up. I mean, do you never say cracker or honky or whatever? What's pejorative for English people? Limey, right?
American.
No, you bastard, you. You noticed what I wore today, though, right, Britisher? Look. See what I wore today, right? Yeah, you're always mocking. Gotta be slick about it. The only people that really know that you're doing it is you and I too. We know that, but you always gotta.
That's one of those American slang words for Hades, isn't it?
Yeah, but it starts with an M, doesn't it?
Tell you what, I hope that somehow or another they bring you up here in January, like January 20th, and drop you off at midnight. You got to knock on my door, Britisher, with that attitude. It's usually about 25, 30 degrees below zero Fahrenheit that time of the year at night. No, but Hades, well, we do have a Hell, Michigan. I think that you pointed that out, that you figured that out.
I did, yeah. I was highly amused when I spotted that one. Yes.
We have Hell. We also have a Perdition, Michigan. We have an Intercourse, Michigan. We have a Whore, Michigan. My wife, her family, Mrs. Ogre's family, has a little bit of property on a river in Whore, Michigan. They tore it down, but she does have some family pictures. I'll have to dredge one up and show you of her and her brother years ago standing in front of a store that said the Whore Store. No joke, no kidding.
Are we talking?
It wasn't like it was a tourist attraction. It's just in the middle of frickin' nowhere, Michigan. But yeah. You laugh all you want to, mate, but all I can say is we got a lot of room up here, so I hope that everybody feels like it's Hades, and they don't want to be here. That leaves all the more room for me and my birds and my dog. And
I still think it can't be quite as good as the Gates at that little place called Hell that actually reads the gates of hell.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, I thought it said, "Despair, all ye who enter here."
And if you think of it, if it is a town and it has a center, then it would be the center of hell.
Center of
Yes.
hell.
I believe
that
if we're
bloke
talking-
that you showed, the mayor of hell, he's rode that pony to the end. I think everybody in Michigan knows who he is, Brett.
Yeah.
Is it called Mr. Natus?
Yeah. No, he actually has some kind of straight up regular name, but he is a gay Satanist, right, Britisher?
I had no idea. I didn't.
I thought you were the
research
one
it.
that sent me that little. You've
I
seen
didn't
an article.
research it that in depth, but yes, there was some guy that basically had himself made mayor of hell for a day.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, he was voted in, and he was mayor of hell for like 6 years. But it was not. It's a time. Here's the problem with the mayor of hell. There is no mayor of hell. There never has been. So he basically petitioned the government and said, well, look, I would like to be mayor of a town that doesn't have enough population to have a mayor. And they did. It's a township is what we call it. It's not even, they might have a population
obviously
of
wouldn't
100.
be a proper mayoralty because it would actually qualify for a lordship.
The Lord of Hell, Professor. The Lord of Hell. Is that what you said?
Surely, yes. I mean, that's got a much better ring to it, has it not?
It has. It has indeed.
Oh, good Lord, have mercy on me.
On the topic of silly names of places, we can always take a nice long look at the British Isles.
Oh, yes, we are famed for it.
Like Nasty
Yep.
or Marsh Gibbon or anything in Wales.
Cockermouth. Cockermouth is my favourite one. Cockermouth.
I like Lost and Spunky.
Oh, man, this is off the rails now, Brett. We got to rein this in.
They're all places. They're all names.
We're descending down.
We're now in
down
place
now to
names,
about 10th
yes.
grade,
And
still
of
will be
course,
down.
there is actually only one possible winner when it comes to place names in Britain.
Not Jean Fair.
No. I will let the if the ogre can present that
It's
on
on
screen,
its
I will
way,
then
Brett.
I
You
will
know that,
then
brother. I
let
always
I
look
will
out
then
there.
let the first ranker pronounce it for us.
Here we go.
Oh my god.
I would be lying if I said I haven't tried.
Is that there? It is. I mean, I don't know if you can see that whopper.
Yeah,
Trying to
I
get
have
on
it
the
here.
screen here.
Yeah, they're not big on vowels, are they, in Wales?
I can't even begin that. Lilin Fair Poulingui. I'm done.
Jean Fair Pool Quillen Gogerich Verendrop Valency Quanticilia Gogogoch or something like that.
There, well, that was damn sight like doggone better than what I did. I got to give it to you. I was following too that. I don't even know.
No doubt someone is going to
things that you
download
did.
this and then cut that bit of the first ranker saying that, and then use it for some nefarious purposes. More than likely, saying Swedish doesn't quite sound like I thought anymore.
That's straight up Swedish, huh? That word?
No, that would be Welsh.
Oh, I was gonna say because they can't have the Germans beat. I do believe they have the Guinness Book record of longest word.
Oh well, yes, but that's because they've got the grammar to kind of just shunt words together. So they make these endless compound words. Yes,
It's because they're always in a hurry to get the best clock made. You know.
I think
Well,
normally
that's
they
what they all
concentrate
said
on
that-
tanks rather than clocks.
Well, but that's what they all said. That when people would go over there to visit in the 30s, and they'd be like, "Oh, what beautiful nightclubs here with all the booze and cigarettes and stuff. Where are all the Germans? Oh, the Germans don't use the nightclubs. They're home right now, sleeping. What do? They make clocks. They build cars. Anyway.
Well, the clocks is more the Swiss, isn't it? It's the Germans. With the Germans, it's more means of taking over other countries.
Oh,
Yes.
but if you have a mantle clock here, the German ones are the coveted ones, Britisher. Like the carved mantle clocks is what I'm trying to say. Like maybe a cuckoo. We would always hold the.
Yes, they come from the Black Forest. Yes, that is German. Yes,
very German. My grandpa had one that was a cuckoo, man. Made in Germany by some kind of. Oh, I don't know. When you looked at the way it was made with the wooden gears in there that made the bloody bird come out and stuff, you had to imagine some German dude that never did anything in his entire life but learn his craft, eat, drink beer, and sleep. That was it. And you got to take your hat off to him, just like you do the Japos and whatnot, the screaming yellow Japanese. But it's because I love this quote, and it was Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, that said, "It would be blasphemy to pay the devil homage, but you can't help but respect him for his work ethic." And I feel much that way about Germans and maybe the Japanese. They try to make us all look bad all the time, as much as you do of myself, Brett.
Except, of course, in my case, it doesn't take any work ethic. It's effortless.
Yeah, you see what I mean? Here we go. Quick, just like that. Yeah, I got nothing to say. I really don't have. I have no retort. But I would say this: long names of villages and whatnot aside, I think that I may be part of the problem for even bringing up this Michael Bennett thing, because it's not worth talking about. I'm being told right now that I'm racist if I see clips of looters in Florida so far, all of whom have been black. It's not new. Like, can't make that up. And so now they're starting to say that since you can't find one Caucasian person out there during a natural disaster taking stuff away from people, since you can't find that if you do either watch that or, oh, I see the F word in this, but I'll look it up. Okay, town name. So in other words, we ain't gonna, because this is from the British. So here we go. He is the co-host. I gotta kind of show this. You can explain it, Brett. You explain it.
Well, this is a town in Austria. I think that's all we need to say. I think that one more than likely wins the prize for, well, most odd name.
Well, for those people that won't be able to see this, Brett, could you how would you pronounce that in English?
Fucking.
Okay, all right. Fucking
how would
Austria.
you pronounce that? How would you pronounce that?
Yes, the first ranker got it pretty much right. Yeah, it would be Fucking.
And it's on the road. It's on the road with villages or towns called Kissing and Petting.
Yes, it is, because it was on. Was it Top Gear or was it the Grand Tour that the three of them have since made?
I think it's the Grand Tour.
Yes, but no. Anyway, I just thought the ogre would enjoy to see that it's the German-speaking world that wins when it comes to oddest names.
Yeah, no, that's funny. That's pretty good. And at least we get a little bit of we can have a little bit of kind of potty humor and have justification for it. We don't have to just be.
It's nothing to do with potty humor. This is just pure geography.
Pure geography.
Exactly.
Just cultural reparations, if anything, it is. Or what do you call it? Cultural appropriations, if nothing else. Well, I think if nothing else, too, boys, because again, there's going to be 2 hours. So, and I do want. It's 4:20, by the way. It's 4:20 right now. Look, Doobie Gate, Britt. It's 4:20 right now where I'm sitting. Just watch it click over. If you smoke marijuana and you can't right now, I am sincerely sorry for you. I'm sorry from the bottom. I'm sorry. This is good. From the bottom of my heart. I feel pain for you.
He says
it's
choking.
Not going to stop me from smoking this joint.
Well, speaking of the Grand Tour, isn't there a bit where when they're supposed to go to what's that big circuit called in Germany?
Nuremberg.
Yeah, the Nürburgring. And they're supposed to go to Nürburg, but they go to Nuremberg. And they go, oh, this will be the very first Nuremberg rally.
No, we're going to talk about this now, boys, because I mean, I got short time, and I want everybody to have a chance to say their last piece. Britt's got to have something. There's been, you know what? There's been a lot going on in the last couple weeks. It really has been. Some stuff that needs our, I guess, I need the humor that we've been spreading around today. I really do. I mean, I don't think the world's going to end or anything. It's just kind of messed up, and I hope that it's a possibility that we could be seeing the end, like the apex, peak SJW. You know, peak PC, if you will. And we might be on the other end of that bell curve, not the Murray bell curve, the bell curve that like has to do with rat infestation or flea infestation, where the fleas they're multiplying, you know, tens of thousands a day, millions a day, and then all of a sudden there's so many of them, they have nothing else to eat, and they go to. So I'm hoping we're already up here on the top of that bell curve with the SJWs, and they've got everything they can eat. Now they got to eat themselves, and pretty soon they'll just be gone. But, you know, and just in case that isn't the case, I was going to bring up Clinton's book, you know, but we talked about Dankula, and I feel like I don't do enough English politics. I'm going to work on that harder too, boys. I really am. All I got to do is look at the news. BBC is just a bear when it comes to listening to their stuff. Apparently, if you're not English, you don't live there. They don't really want anybody to hear their bloody news. But I'm going to figure something out that's not the Daily Caller or the Sun. So
I said already.
To hell with Clinton though, because we covered Dank, and I don't even care. I don't care to talk about her. All you got to do is go. In fact, I recommend go buy her book and read it. You'll just hate her even more for the money that you spent to hear her bellyache about why she sucks.
Actually, can I not? I'm not endorsing that. Don't go out and buy it. Rip it off of somewhere. Don't buy it. Just get a dank copy somewhere. Just don't buy it.
Oh, you said rip it off.
Exactly. Yeah, rip it off somewhere.
All right, I can't endorse that. He says, "What I'm telling you, don't steal it." Is what his endorsement. And I'm not going to not endorse that. Yeah, don't spend money on it. Wait till it comes out free or something. And for good Lord, don't buy the audiobook, because she does read it. So I don't know who here. Does anybody else know about the bodega thing that's been going on?
I can't say I do.
Apparently, a couple dudes from Google got some financing, and they're making these little stands they call bodega, which is Spanish for store. I think it means warehouse, but it's like store is what it translates to. And what you do is you would get your code by saying, I want to buy something at bodega. It'll send you a little thing that you type, a key code that you type in on your phone, shoot it back to the vending machine, for lack of a better word. You'll be able to open up the glass front and take anything in there that you would like. In some cases, cold drinks, headache powders, you know, little sundries, you know what I mean? Little sundries. And when you take them, there's cameras there situated that see you taking these things out when you put your code in, and it knows when the doors open and close. And then it just automatically charges your credit card. And I guess the big stink is, Britisher and everyone, is that the boys that got the funding for this and thought of this thing, which I kind of see as revolutionary, I won't even lie. They came out and they were like, yeah, our goal is to put out mom and pop restaurants, mom and pop stores, and to replace them in the future. And isn't that what you say when you're trying to sell an idea? But there you go. So this is this new thing. And apparently I didn't know, except for Sofane, Brett, and Common Sense, everybody. But Sofane was tweeting this out. There is this big uproar. Oh Lord, I may, while you boys even think about talk about this, or maybe give your thoughts on it, because of course one way to look at it is you're taking away jobs from people. Another way to look at it is, well, we need robots and stuff. We have to accept that this change is going to come. And Brett, I know you have, the reason I keep saying your name is because I know you have strong feelings about this. We've talked about animation and the sapping and losing of human jobs and what it might mean to humanity in the future before on the show.
Well, I mean, when it comes to anything that is just basically, you know, spreading robot technology further, it is inevitable. Our problem is just we don't have a societal solution for it. Because, I mean, we can't be Luddites. We cannot stand in the way of of progress. It can't be done, because if you are a country and you just basically decide that you are not going to do this, you are going to put laws in the way of it, all that is going to happen is that it's going to happen in all other countries, and they are just going to steal a technological march on you, and all you are going to do is impoverish your own nation. But as such, we simply don't have a societal model, which allows for this. We expect people to work, and we effectively will have to end up with some sort of universal welfare state, even though we just simply don't know exactly how we are going to model it, simply just due to the fact that if we're putting all the people out of work, what are they supposed to do? So yes, when it comes to whether it be this example or others, I don't as such oppose robotics, because it's inevitable. It's going to happen. My problem with it is just simply we have to get our thinking caps on and work out how we want to run our societies so that people can exist and can lead fruitful lives within them. Because if suddenly all their work disappears, they will have to find a means by which to sustain themselves.
Well said, man. I just want to give everybody else, because I had a lot of wind in the beginning of that, and I'm still trying to find a little bit of snippet from because the first article, anybody that might have got the show map, looked at it at all or whatever, the first one, man, was it was written from a very biased standpoint. I guess that's the way to say it.
Well, I'd like to just add a little bit onto this. Besides the points of actually trying to take away jobs, which I was listening to BBC Radio 4 because I had to go up to the hospital today, which was about 2-3 hour drive. So I was bored and I wanted to listen to some stories. And all that was on was tech from Silicon Valley about how everything's there to make everybody better. And the main premise of every single person's story that was happening was, we're doing this so people don't have to work later on in life, as in so people are not going to work. And when the reporters said to them, but what you're going to be doing is taking away people's jobs, their response was, oh, well, that just happens in the market. You know, you rip up jobs and you destroy them, and then there's other jobs that spring up for absolutely nowhere. And it's fine if you're doing something like replacing horses with cars. You still need to maintain the horses, you still need to maintain the cars, so you still need people looking after them. If you're taking away the people aspects of things, which is what they're trying to do, you only need 1 or 2 people to look after what it would normally take like 50, 60 people to do. You're losing your workforce completely and utterly. And then people will go, oh yeah, but that's fine, then we've got go on welfare, we get more free time. No, we won't. They'll find something for us to do. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will be something that we all want to do. It might be something like labour camps or something like that, for instance. Going down conspiracy theory road slowly here. But that's what could be happening. But I do like the fact that nobody likes to go down and copy China and things like that. But if you go into China, everything's done in a vending machine. They're literally lined up. Everything is in a vending machine. And that, as you can see from the picture, as in that Ogre's got, I don't know if he can present it for us. It shows you in there that he's got basically an actual full picture of a store, as in all the sundries and things like that that you can get from like a cabinet thing. Now, if you're going to take away people's stores, you're going to be taking away people's livelihoods. That means you're going to lose free markets. That means without even having government or any sort of democratic vote, you're going to be losing your free markets, which means you're going to be losing capitalism in the first place anyway, for the common person to be able to actually obtain it. Because if you can't set up a store because there's a vending machine around the corner that's going to be cheaper and easier for people to use, they're going to do that instead of coming into the store. I don't know.
Yeah, but you got to, in some cases, but all I'll say is, oh man, this is a tough one for me. Let me let you boys kick it around before I put my 2 cents in, because it might be crazy.
Well, I mean, I think common sense is right in saying that it destroys the actual market, because markets depend on there being a a mass of people who have the means by which to purchase a product. The moment that you put all those people out of work and you basically just have a rich elite that, forgive the use of socialist jargon, owns the means of production. Whereas previously, of course, owning the means of production meant owning the factory in which the workers toiled. But once you actually own the workers, because the robots then become the workers, you kind of completely control the means of production. But those rich people will only stay rich for a short time because all their perfect robot workers will be producing products which one won't be able to sell, because the masses have been put out of work by the very robots and thus will not have any money with which to buy the products. So
that's why Henry Ford was the genius. He said, I must pay my workers enough to buy my bloody product.
Precisely. And it's also what Maggi said on the European continent. He was also famous for that. He was a soup maker who paid his workers more than was the going rate.
Maggi.
And yes, Maggi.
Okay.
And when people complained about it, when other industrialists complained about it, he said that he was doing it deliberately because he saw it necessary to kind of make sure that the working masses eventually earned that much money that they would be buying his products. And he's kind of regarded as a visionary these days. And this is the problem, that you could end up with the whole capitalist model kind of collapsing, because the capitalist model doesn't simply depend on mass producing products as cheaply as possible. It also depends on there being a mass market whereby people can buy these products. If you go back to a kind of sort of pre-modern state whereby only the rich can afford, only the rich and the sort of upper middle classes can afford to actually buy products, and everybody else is sort of scraping around in the dirt and merely subsisting, you will find that the capitalist markets will shrivel up to merely a fraction of what they are now.
Yeah,
so,
you've got something even worse though, Britisher. As you was saying, if you go back in history, I'm guessing you mean something like the Middle Ages, where only the rich and the lords and the middle class and educated were able to buy stuff, but they were still able to do their bakeries, they were still able to do their butcheries, they were still able to do their fisheries and markets and stuff like that. If you've already got, as we've both said, if you've already got the machines and everything else like that instead of the shops, you can't set up a shop. You can't force your own force of income. You've got to have handouts relied to you from the government or from your king, whatever analogy you want to use. And that's the main problem, that if you take away the shop, you take away the person's work. And if you take away the person's work, you can't actually have a form of income, which means you can't buy the stuff that you're actually doing. And you've got no way of generating any income, which means you are then technically a slave to the government, because you are waiting for the government to give you what you need and what you want, because you can't buy it. And this is a way of doing it through the back door rather than actually doing it through the government, in my mind.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree with you that yes, it will create a substantive problem. And yes, you will then suddenly have everybody highly dependent on the state. And that's what I mean. We need some sort of model as to how actually to run society. And yes, it more than likely will mean that you will have the state having to supply a great many people with a basic income of sorts. But how exactly?
That's part of it. But common sense. Also, add this into it, if you will, Brett, on this idea. But common sense. Didn't you bring up the other day that now, because the robots are doing this job, and the Britisher mentioned that now you own the laborer because it's the robot, isn't there going to be this question of robots' rights?
Yeah, but that's only when the people are being bored and things like that. I think the people in this instance would miss all of that abstinence and would be thinking, I need food. We were talking about a Star Trek type of instance where everybody was settled.
We can toss that off and just go to the idea of, like the Brits said, I mean, I'm trying to wrap. Here's the biggest problem I have with that way of thinking, Brit, is this. We have more than enough of this fiat currency. There's only something to the effect of 3% of it, 4% of it that is actually held in people's hands like money. The rest of it's numbers on a computer. It's all arbitrary. And yes, I know it's for motivation and reward, all these things, but it's pretty much, here's my point. We have plenty of resources. No one really need work. No one. And as I always say, someone will always want to. Robotics and stuff, somebody will always want to. So why not just say, everybody gets a mansion and a Ferrari, fuck it.
Because how do you pay for it? That's the whole
thing.
But you still got people that need to build it. You still got, there won't be enough room for everybody to have. Even in America,
it was volunteer only, but you were making Ferraris or whatever. The line for craftsmen would be out the door. You would just have to pick the best ones, as you do now. So
okay, so how do you buy the Ferrari afterwards? Then you may be able to stand in line.
No money. Imagine all the people.
Exactly. The fact that you're singing that song obviously indicates it's just ludicrous points. It's just a ludicrous point. There's just no point in discussing that aspect because it's not going to work because you're singing that song.
Fine, man. Fine. I don't appreciate being called ludicrous. No, it was good. But it is to be said. I mean this for everybody here. Like it or not, all of these ideas that were just shot at me. No, it's not. That's nonsense. It's rubbish. We don't need motivation. There will always be human beings that will want. If you could take everything away from me right now that I had and say you have ultimate decision to do what you want to do, what do you want? I would say, oh, there's plenty of land on the earth. Yes, I would like the exact same amount of land that I had. Okay. You need people to have eggs and make chicken for people to eat? Yes. Well, okay, I would like to do that. You need someone to make soap for people? Yes, I want to do that. And I'm sure if you asked Mrs. Ogre, she would say, oh, you need people to help, folks breathe. And they say yes, and she would do that. I'm not even kidding. Well, I'm not sure she would do that. She might even
question then. How do you get food? Not from your farm, for instance. How do you get food that you can't process yourself because you need a big factory?
You come and get it from me.
No. Say you've got all of the food, but like for making corns and different bits and pieces of food.
You come and get it from me.
Yeah, but you need to have a factory to be able to actually make some of the foods. To actually mix in some of the foods. You need to have a
mill. You need to have a mill in some cases, but you don't need to have a factory for any kind of the foods that I like to eat.
Well, fine, but there's still going to be other people that are going to need the factories for foods, though.
The meat pies they sell for like a pound, I do like those, and they're horrible for me, but I don't have to have them. I mean, all the things that I eat that I have to have, now you need somebody with a mill and a grindstone that would have a mill. I'm telling you, if nothing else, oh Lord, I'm just going to shut up now, Brett. I can hear the British like digging. Okay. No, we don't need the state, Brett. We don't need the state because of hurricanes. You said the other night wrap up. And I appreciate it. And you know what, Brett? That was a wonderful jab at me because I turned the mic off. I was like, you hear that, John? I was like, Brett is he's jabbing at me now because he knows it's his final word. So he just like, some smart people like to consider themselves smart and say they don't need a state. Here's why they're morons. And then we all knew we were talking.
See, I can agree with you. Ogre, on the fact that we don't necessarily need a state in the fact of having free markets and letting everybody else decide what they want to do and things like that. But if you're going down the route of what this is instigating, then you'd have the problem of the fact that the government is in charge and the corporations are in charge. You would still have a government, you would still have a state, and they would be dictating to you what you can and cannot do because they own everything, and you don't have any money to be able to do what you want to do. You can't sustain yourself.
That's the problem that lies between freedom and utopia and what we're at. What you just said, it really is.
Yes.
Who would be? How would it be governed? Because even though what I said is true, there's enough resources for everybody to have a mansion or Ferrari. There really is. There's enough for every human being on earth. There really is. But who's going to decide who gets which one first? Who keeps up with who gets the next one? Which, I mean, all of the things when it comes to management of that utopia, I don't know. We definitely don't have it now, do we?
Not at the moment. No, we're trying to be in the Western civilization where we're trying to say that we have the best form of governments at this moment in time. Now we all know that that's a farce, because we all know there is, depending on which government you're talking about, but all of them have levels of corruption in them. Now, if you're going to have the bit where you have, what do you call it, corporation or corporatism, that's going to be taken over, which that's what this would be, because it wouldn't be a form of capitalism, and it wouldn't technically even be a form of socialism. It would be literally a form of corporatism, which means that the corporations would be running the world and not governments and not independent people. And that's the problem, the point that I have. That in itself is actually even worse than what socialism can be. Because at least with socialism, you can blame the governments. But with corporatism, you can't even blame the governments, because the corporations, individual corporations, i.e. your Coca-Cola wars and whatever, are the ones that are actually destroying the world, so to speak. They're the ones that are leading you and telling you what you can and cannot do.
Well, Sorry, go ahead.
No, all I was going to say was the difference between corporations and capitalism is going to be using the free markets, meaning that you have all of the control because you're the consumer and what you do affects the corporations. Where corporatism is the complete opposite. The corporations tell you what you can and cannot buy and how much to price it for.
Well, yeah, the corporations, in that regard, I mean, that was something I touched upon recently. One of the problems we have is that we have got the corporations actually also looking after free speech when it comes to where much of the public discourse actually happens at the moment, which is, Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah.
And one of the problems with corporations is that they just simply want to keep an even keel. They just want to keep things steady. They want to stay away from controversy. And so they therefore have an inbuilt bias in favor of censorship, because in a way, anybody who mentions anything controversial, in what way is it in their interest to silence that person, because that person is causing controversy for which they can be blamed by various interest groups, or to instead maintain freedom of speech? What are they going to get if they maintain freedom of speech? Nothing. No. So basically, they see no reward, they see no benefit in actually maintaining freedom of speech, and yet they can perceive benefit in silencing people. So therefore, they are in a way the last people who should be trusted with freedom of speech, which is, of course, why this should be in the hands of governments. Because with governments, at least, then we have got, parliamentary democratic processes. We have got the law. We have got the courts and so on. Whereas when it comes to the corporations, they can just shut you down. They don't need to explain. So when it comes to Count Dankula, at least he is being taken to court. It isn't just a matter of, okay, right, you've lost your right to say something, you can't say this anymore. And, your ability to speak has been removed. But that's the kind of power we are handing the corporations. So I think that's where that's where corporatism also comes in, as common sense was kind of alluding to there. That when it comes to the corporations, their ability to basically just switch us off is total and instantaneous, and they are completely unaccountable. They are only accountable to their own shareholders, who in a lot of cases are other corporations. So in that respect, we really, really need to do something about the protection of free speech on these platforms. For good reason, there aren't any immediate protections at the moment, because the internet has been so fast moving. You never know whether a platform still exists in 2 years. But we know that they will be replaced by other platforms. This sort of social media, as we're seeing now, this is not just going to go away. So whether
Brett,
it has...
You did this meme, you made this?
Yes, yeah, I sent it to Dank, and I've also tweeted it out. I was doing it while we were on the air here today.
That's quite wonderful, bro. Sure, that really is. I mean it, man. I really mean it.
Did you guys see the Shaw Dank Redemption?
That is
yes,
just. I mean,
saw that one. Yes, that was beautiful.
Made my heart. It did something to my heart when I've seen this. I'm not even kidding. That is.
Oh, I did.
That is wonderful. It's moving.
I even found a little place for Buddha.
Yep.
Wait,
oh, I see. I've seen the whole thing. I mean, it's as much as it is a cool, funny meme and a joke and all. No, it's a little stirring for me, Brett, because as ridiculous as this is for us lot here. Let's face it. Isn't he kind of like our? Isn't he kind of our field marshal? I mean, we met him as we were just coming about, Brett, even yourself, and here he is, and he stands for this idea of freedom, and it's just wonderful, Brett. It really is. That's a wonderful thing you did there. I like that.
Should anyone be interested, it's the Black Watch at Fontenoy. So that's the actual painting.
So who is he standing for there?
I don't know who the commander of the Black Watch would have been in 1745. Okay. But I'm sure one can. I'm sure one can find that. One can find out.
Apparently, it was Count Dankula.
Apparently, yes. Yes.
Count Dank Wallace. We like to call him here. And you came up with that, and that one was funny. This is look. I'm over it. I already said enough. That is really nice, but it was very thoughtful, and it really does make a person look at that and see the patriotism. It's easy for an American to think, oh, to be patriotic means to love the United States. Not if you're British. To be patriotic is to love Britain, and to see them depicted here with the Union Jack, and I mean, it's just, it really is as cheesy as it sounds.
Well, I knew really if I wouldn't basically choose a Scottish unit, he would kill me.
I like the fact that that the Scottish regiments have their own kinds of tartan.
Yes. Yes, yeah, they basically have almost like their own clan tartan. Yes. So the Black Watch has a very distinct tartan. Yes.
Isn't that what we would call plaid?
Oh, well, I mean, if you would just refer to it as plaid to a Scotsman, you would be in trouble. Yes.
Oh, so there is a
given the Glasgow
what's the difference?
Sorry?
I wonder what the difference is, because they looked. I mean, why would it be offensive?
Well, I mean, they are extremely proud of it. It really is part of their distinct heritage. And
I wouldn't know what tartan was if it wasn't for Mrs.
cultural significance, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, because like each clan makes their own pattern. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't even have known what it was if it wasn't been for Mrs. Ogre. She was the one that told me. I mean, because I heard it in I think the first time I ever really come to my attention was in a Stephen King novel, and I was like, Mrs. Ogre, what the hell is tartan? And she was like, oh, it's plaid. It's a pattern. and anyway. So sorry, no offense to Count Dankula, but apparently I need to remember that. Is there a difference? Is there a time where you would call a pattern plaid and it would be appropriate? That's, I guess, my curiosity on that.
I mean, I don't think we really use plaid over here. I think we would always, because obviously the Scottish influence in Britain is that much stronger. I think we would always refer to it as tartan, or you can also just call it check. But I think plaid is something that is predominantly used in the United States for some reason.
Okay, yeah, I have no idea why either, as far as I know, because everybody knows we're the ones that spawned the idea of genocide, slavery, homophobia, racism, and all
crimes against the English language. Yes,
we've spawned all of that stuff. There was none of that before the colonies broke off from the beloved United Kingdom empire. And then we degraded into all that. So leave it to us. It's probably some very derogatory thing that means like the equivalent to this, the N word for Scots. I have no idea.
Well, it's the sort of thing people would use, the sort of word people would use who are devoid of culture.
Oh, well, I'll say tartan from now on. I actually, since I found out what it means, that's how I refer it.
Well, I'm just reminding you of the fact that given that you are white and you live in America, you don't possess a culture.
I'm fully aware of what we were doing, Britisher. Yeah. No, I just what I'm saying is pistols at dawn. No, I don't. No, I just blowing it off. If I give credence to all of your fuckery, well, then it gives too much weight to it. So sometimes I just gotta blow it off. And let's remember, sir, while you're all high and mighty with your English centuries and whatnot, if you're white too, man, you have no culture. At least I think you are. I have no idea. And no one knows apparently, but I think you're white. You sound
don't
white.
really know whether the character in question on that particular viral video, whether he was only referring to white Americans or whether he was referring to all white people. We will never know.
Listen to you. Look at you now. You racist, sexist, homophobic robot. You. I tell you what, I've been watching you. Been watching these 9 months.
Don't be robosis.
I think there's a strong case for you to be silent, sir, for your bigotry that you've shown against the sexist, saying that women can only play at a 16-year-old level for a male athlete in football, and for your racism, where I can't think of nothing racist you said off the top of my head, but I'll think of something.
I have that link. I have that link in response.
Oh, is this this is something racist, I'm sure. Or is this the meme of me, the autistic screaming meme of me? Oh, okay. What is this, Brett? What have you just said?
Just look at the photograph.
I'm looking at it. Oh, that's incredible. Now that's not Buddha.
No, that's not Buddha. No.
That's okay. We'll pretend it's Buddha. It sure does look. I mean, I guess they all look the same. You can even see the penis there, so it's definitely a male. It's just a little one there, but he's got one.
Trust you to look out for that. Yes.
Well, no, I just noticed you can't help look there. You can't help but see it. Look at that. It's right there. It's like to be honest, I looked there and I was like, man, he's got a weird toe there. What is that strange toe? And oh, it's his little dingus.
Ah, you know what it is? He's putting his pinky finger up ready for his tea.
He might be getting ready to do a Sig Heil because bloody Count Dankula. Now it's spreading because of this evil he is.
No, not in that uniform.
Yeah, not in that one.
Not that. No Sig Heiling there. Sorry, I guess I see the significance there. Oh well, look, boys, look at the time. How the time flies. Mrs. Ogre has been making some signs and symptoms that I either have to get back to work or look for another wife.
It's strange. I didn't hear the sound of a whip crack in the background there.
No, I don't need her to do anything right now. But I'll crack it when I got it. I mean, you'll see, when I got to have her do something, I'll break the whip out. At the moment, she's doing okay. But one of her jobs is assigned by me to remind me when I'm slacking, because I mean we all need that. And who better to hear that from than your loved one? But no, I think that's why we've been married 23 years too. There really ain't no whips around here. All the jokes aside, really is like we've learned a long time ago that we have to live in the same house. We don't have to. We want to live in the same house, and we want to be, no children, 2 incomes, all the cool stuff that goes with being able to work and not having any things tying you down. And so we make it work. I don't know. We make it work. And I believe the biggest part of that is no whips. I know there's a lot of things I do that, because the funny thing is you remember, Britisher, Amanda Wolfchild was like, I want to ask Mrs. Ogre something. And then she asked me, do you have control issues? Because when she said ask Mrs. Ogre, I heard her say that. I was like, oh, you mean me? Yes. And then Mrs. Ogre was like laughing. And I was like, oh, well, you mean, yeah, I got control issues. She's got all the control. And the joke is that, no, man, if you want to make anything work, I believe this as human beings, if you're equal mentally, you have to be equal in other ways. And that would be remembering that because I don't like a whip cracked. I don't. Even though what I said is true, I do ask Mrs. Ogre to help me, if I'm getting slacking off and forgetting because there's things got to be done. Things have to be done. And I got 2 choices. I either bloody do them or I get to, and I am the kind of guy that will space stuff out and get over here, la-di-da, look at the pretty butterfly. Next thing you know, the chores ain't done. I don't know how else to say it. Oh, anyway, look, I'm off that. Because I'm looking at the time, mates, and I don't know how much time y'all got. I won't joke. If we're not done with all the topics, anything else. In fact, I know this common sense, and British, unless you're in a hurry, common sense, because I got 20 more minutes at least. You sent me a couple tweets for the last thing, and I know we talked about Dankula, but man, we're always on about the Yank shit, this, and so much that the Britisher has to mock me for being a Yank. Didn't you? You tweeted me some stuff, and I know that you wanted to at least talk about one of the two common sense. What is it?
I prefer the Labour opportunism over the EU withdrawal.
Okay, let me look here. Let me go back. Boom, boom. Go back to your tweet to me. No, yeah, well, so you can tell. Okay, so it's the first or second one. So it's Labour.
Second.
Okay, there you go. I'll screen share it. You can tell us about it, brother.
Basically, obviously, as you can see, this is from the Huffington Post. Though it is a UK branch, it is a little bit unbiased because it's more to do with America than anything else. Oh, yeah, I forgot it. It was from my phone. If we go down a little bit.
And it looks like I might not be able to. It's trying to tell me to do something on Google Play, which I don't even have.
That's fine. That's fine.
Oh, is this it right here?
No, that's not it. That's not it at all, no. Basically, what it is that this was a little bit of news to say that the reason why Labour or Jeremy Corbyn himself was trying to put so much pressure on the EU withdrawal bill, which is the bill to say the transfer of powers, was actually from his own Labour ministers, which they're all accredited in there, of coming out and saying that he was only doing it because he wanted to stall Brexit negotiations. He wanted just to make the government look bad. No other reason than that. Not because he believed that Brexit was bad or whatever, actual sticking to a point or his guns or anything. He just wanted to make the government look bad and just wanted to stall Brexit negotiations. And that's just the character of the person that I wanted to bring up. The fact that he wasn't bothered about any political prowess or anything else like this. It was purely about getting one-upmanship on the other government. And that was it. Nothing to do to help the country or anything else like that. And that's the type of people that Labour are voting for. And that's just the type of story that I wanted to bring up. To be honest, I'm sure that other people have got their own views on it, but that's the premise of the story. Unfortunately, I can't actually get the names.
The washing machine.
Well, this is all surrounding really the Brexit vote that was just being had in Parliament, is it?
Oh, sorry.
Yes. No, it's the one that was passed yesterday for by 36 votes.
Yeah, I mean, just for the sort of benefit of the audience, what the parties basically claimed was basically the government is saying we basically need to incorporate all current European Union law into the body of British law. Then we'll be in a position, once we've left the European Union, that not suddenly all these laws cease to exist. And then over time, we can then choose which of those laws we want to get rid of. But it means that on leaving the European Union, we don't suddenly fall off a cliff in which suddenly thousands of statutes don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
At the same time, government ministers are being given power whereby they can amend matters. The reason they need to be able to amend some of these laws is because in some cases these laws may refer to European institutions, or
like the European Supreme Court, for instance,
the European Court and things like that.
Yes.
So, given that we will have basically distanced ourselves from them, it wouldn't make any sense having references in the laws that hark back to those institutions. So in order to basically avoid paradoxes, we would need ministers to basically have limited powers whereby they can instruct, clerks to effectively amend those texts. Now, Labour have, effectively under the pretense of saying they believe this could be a kind of veiled power grab by the government.
No, Henry VIII powers they used as propaganda.
Basically be seeking to get rid of workers' rights and things like that via the back door by giving ministers the right to scrap them. So they basically decided to try and vote that whole operation down.
Yep.
But of course, they were presenting no alternative. So effectively, what the government was saying is, look, we need to do this for practicality's sake. So whether you like the ability that the ministers can amend something, or whether you insist that Parliament has to vote for every single tiny amendment, whether you agree with that or not, we need at least the sort of the larger package, which means that the law has to be introduced into British law. We need that definitely to stand, because otherwise we will end up with complete chaos on the day of our leaving the European Union.
Yep.
And Labour had virtually nothing to say to that. And in that regard, I can see why common sense is somewhat cynical about them, because it did appear as if they were quite literally willing to basically throw the whole country into chaos, whereby no one would really know what laws applied anymore and which ones did.
Because what should happen now, Brett? I'm trying not to interject too much on this first conversation.
What should happen is effectively what has happened. That the government has won. It won actually pretty narrowly, but it did win the vote in Parliament. So this
36 votes the difference. 36 votes the difference.
I think there are still other votes to come, but I think sort of on the first major vote on this issue.
And let's be clear, so everybody remembers, British, we may have some new people here, just so they know that you're not just saying whatever it is that you may say. I think I know where you're going to go, because you already said that they did win. Now, what did you vote for, if we may ask, being a Britisher?
Well, as I say, it's not the people who voted; it was the parliamentarians. So this was dealt with in Parliament.
Oh, okay,
so
okay.
So
we're
beyond
like
a congressional vote in America.
Let me just put it this way: as a British person, you're saying that now is time to move forward and do the Brexit.
Well, I mean, the Brexit was voted for by the people, so effectively, we the British voted for it. So it is for Parliament to kind of implement it happening.
Indeed.
And what we have got is quite a few politicians who, it appears, are seeking to do everything in their power to somehow sabotage this progress from occurring. And in Europe, they seem to be taking succor from that, because they seem to be wondering whether Britain will actually have the nerve to go ahead with it. I think there is quite a bit of belief in Europe that the British may still change their minds.
Yeah.
Frankly, as this is progressing, if anything, I think the position in Britain is hardening.
Indeed, I get that as well.
Because the Europeans, I mean, Jean-Claude Juncker, who is the president of the European Commission,
he's not doing himself any favors.
He came out again being utterly obnoxious. And that doesn't really help. If you're trying to make friends, this is not the way to do it. And one can feel a wedge being driven between the Europeans and the British at the moment. And one wonders whether, I mean, I have heard some politicians, I mean, admittedly they are on the right of politics, but I have heard some suggest that it almost looks as if some people within the European Union side are almost trying to sabotage any agreement from being reached. So it will be very interesting to see what happens once Angela Merkel has been re-elected. Because then finally she will be free to act. At the moment, she is staying well out of everything. And I can well imagine that the Germans will have something to say about it, and the French.
Indeed.
Because they will not be wanting to go against their own national interest. And
can I point something out to you as well?
Go ahead.
With Angela Merkel, at this moment in time, she's actually changed her premise on immigration at the moment, to the point where she's like, oh, we might need to close the doors a little bit and limit the immigration. I wonder why she's doing that.
It may have something to do with an election coming up.
Oh, I didn't even know it was happening.
Well, I can well imagine that the Germans, who export a great many cars into Britain, and the French, who sell a great deal of produce, and the Dutch, I could well imagine that they might have something to say about it, and that they may begin clawing back some of the control of the negotiations with Britain, and not entirely leave it in the hands of European functionaries. Because at the moment, all the people who are engaged in the negotiations are effectively European Union functionaries. So they're not really allocated to particular countries. But of course, the power to decide in the end lies with the governments of the individual countries. And I cannot see Merkel stomaching tens of thousands of German workers losing their jobs in car factories because they can't export German cars into Britain. So something clearly will have to give. But at the moment, it's in the hands of the European, of the Brussels people, effectively. And it seems almost as if they're determined to somehow try and sabotage it in order to punish Britain.
Yes, indeed.
I really, that is in a way suicidal because they're hurting their own economies. But at the same time, I think that could almost bring about the collapse of the European Union.
Oh, please, goodness.
Well, because put it like this, if the Europeans really try to set about hurting Britain, so really try to hurt the British economy in order to send a signal to other European nations, particularly, we don't want you to leave. What it effectively would mean is, you can't leave. If you seek to leave, we will cripple your economy.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, the moment you tell that, particularly to the Eastern Europeans, it's game over.
Yeah.
Because the Eastern Europeans, they have in living memory, they remember actually being part of the Eastern European bloc of the Soviets, the Warsaw Pact.
Yeah, the Estonians, the Latvians, the Lithuanians.
That was one of those. That was one of those organizations that they were a part of, and which they could not leave.
Yeah. Just to quickly add to your point.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, just to quickly add to your point, that's the reason why Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic are at this moment in time going through court cases, as in they're getting ready to go through court cases with the European Union, because they would not take any refugees in. That gives you the strength of resolve of those type of countries, just to boost what British's point is.
Yeah, no, I mean, they are quite willing to fight their own corner. But if they are going to be told that they can't get out of the European Union, then the European Union will have a very strong problem. Because if suddenly Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, if suddenly all those countries basically get together and say, look, we don't want this.
Yeah, they remember when they had to learn to speak Russian in grade school. The Poles do, and the Lats, and everybody you just mentioned. So I actually, through my stepfather, I have some connection to Czechoslovakia and to some of the countries just mentioned, especially Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania. And I tell you, man, people don't know what they're begging for, Britisher.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't know. They have no idea. They have no idea the mantles they take up when they take up this balderdash, this racism, this sexism. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know that. I know that the common sense guy always likes to go back to cultural Marxism. A lot of times they don't even realize what it is that they're being proponents of, what they're being pundits of, what they're purporting to say is the proper way to live.
Yeah, no,
exactly. Yeah, well, that was my
Yeah, I think in this case now it really, particularly when you have got Juncker, who basically comes out and he states that the British will regret it, and then right on the tail of that, as if that wouldn't really be bad enough, he then digs in his heels and announces, but that is not the end of it. It basically means that the European project is now free to go on and integrate further. So just as the British have just told the Europeans that they've had enough of European integration, that they've tried reforming Europe from within and have just realized this is never going to work and have decided we're leaving. At the very same time, when clearly the Eastern Europeans are getting uppity, when in France, in Holland, in Germany itself, there seems to be movements afoot saying, look, we've had enough. In the middle of that, the one conclusion that the leading European bureaucrat draws from all this is, now finally we can integrate further because the British are leaving. And it just sounded almost like a kind of, suicide note. It seemed to be so detached from reality. And I think that's where it is. Everyone is really now waiting for the German elections because everyone knows it looks fairly certain that Merkel is going to win. So at the moment, Merkel has got her hands tied. But Macron in France is more than likely champing at the bit. All these governments, also the Dutch government.
Wait, why would Macron be chomping?
Well, because I think all of them realize that they have to somehow reposition themselves. They have to change something because they will somehow have to acknowledge that something like this is happening. They may not acknowledge it officially.
Why would you mention Macron? Because you said Macron and the rest, and I'm not trying to be too combative. I'm listening carefully. I'm trying to understand this. So when you say Macron and the rest, who are the rest?
Well, as I say, the Dutch,
the whole of them,
pretty much, yes. A lot of
the EU,
also Western European governments, will kind of realize that there is, as I say, and the Easterns also. But everyone is realizing that unease with the European Union is growing. Needs to be done.
Yeah,
and it sure as hell isn't further integration.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Brett.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's funny you say that because they've recently, I believe today, have literally come out and actually stated that they were obviously going to integrate Turkey into becoming an EU member. That has now completely and utterly been abolished because they now said, oh, no, we have to show the fact that we want particular mannerisms, we want particular governments and stuff like that. So they've cut that off. Your bit with Macron, the reason why Macron is chomping at the bit is because all of French business at the moment are saying we are idiots if we do not do a trade deal. We need to change these vendors at the moment and we need to change these points. And Macron is not doing it. He's not doing it at all. He's not even entertaining the idea.
Can you imagine not having a trade deal with France right there across the channel? I mean, give me a bloody break. There would be this dumbest thing. It would hurt France. It would hurt France more than it would England. Every time somebody, I'm just going to pretend I'm Cabbage Patch Bastard without the accent. Every time somebody underestimates England, they become fools throughout history, from Hadrian all the way up to these people that say because of the Brexit, Obama get to the back of the queue and all of this stuff. No, don't underestimate England. You need them more than they need you, believe it or not.
Yeah,
there are many bitter weeds in England.
I just thought I would point out we wouldn't have a trade agreement with France because France being a member of the EU, we would effectively have to have a trade agreement with the EU.
Yes.
Members of the EU are not permitted to have individual trade agreements with other countries. So
yeah, unless somebody that was tough got with them and said, "Look, Macron, the only way that we want to trade with you." I mean, what I'm saying is, it's going to come down to that too. It's going to come down with some EU states.
That was my point.
Maybe not. I mean, if the people that were in charge would pull the Brexit, and this is me doing what you gentlemen do with me very often. That's just me talking as an American, as a Yank, as a wayward colonist about your politics. At this point, pull out. It's like the whole, hey, can I do it inside you, honey? No, it's not. And then you pull out. You don't question it. You pull out. The country said, no, it's not that time of the month. You pull out. Take it out of there. You can go to France later. You have English. They're the English. These Britons, man, they are the masters of negotiation. All of the things that Trump says about, oh, you know, dumb countries and we need good people. I never heard him say that, but, you know, let them do what they have to do. And in the end, if they pulled a complete Brexit, got out of there, and went to France and said, oh, you want to sell your wine and cheese here? You know, we want to sell our rifle barrels and what's some other good stuff that rifle barrels is what I know English do well. And whatever else it is that y'all do well, you want to sell that? Okay, let's have a deal and screw the EU. Britisher, it could happen. And
well, I think when it comes to foodstuffs, I think particularly countries like France, but also Italy and you know, pretty much every country in Europe has got something in it. And that is that what the European Union offers at the moment is also protection of certain names for certain goods. So you can
copyright
only
protection.
sell, well,
Indirectly.
Indirectly.
Trademark protection. It's just a trademark.
You can only sell Parma ham if it's actually made in Parma. So there are lots of sort of, you know, luxury food items, so to speak. You know, things that have an additional price margin upon them because they come from a quality place. Europe is very, very keen, for example, to see that those protections still apply within Britain, and that Britain can't suddenly start, you know, producing knockoff stuff or selling foreign competitions that are actually of a lower quality within the fifth largest market of the world. So Europe is very keen that, you know, champagne can only be sold as champagne if it is made in the Champagne region of France. And Britain, it will no doubt be willing to protect those names in the same way that they're protected in the European Union. But you will only ever get to the point of negotiating such protections if you have a trade deal with us. If you're still trying to play this Jean-Claude Juncker game with us of, oh, well, we will punish you, you know, we will try and burn your economy to a cinder, and then you will know better to leave the European Union. And when you come crawling back, then we shall try and negotiate. Then we will. Then we will
Lord,
decide.
Juncker's from where, Brett? I know I should remember this, but it slipped my mind. Sweet.
I think he may be Belgian or Luxembourger. I'm not sure.
Oh, thank goodness
he's from
Luxembourg.
I think he's from Luxembourg.
Belgium.
He's from Luxembourg.
I remember we talked about him because you were talking about whether or not you would like to get him elected. If I remember, you weren't. You were saying he probably would win, but you weren't swaying that you loved him at the time. Oh,
I mean, I've always been a great admirer of Jean-Claude Juncker.
Yeah,
I don't remember it that way.
I think everybody has always been. I mean, he is kind of the European Obama. Everybody loves him.
Yeah, yeah.
I love
Jean-Claude Juncker. Okay, I'm going to laugh. All right, because look, we talk about a lot of stuff, but I don't remember you saying anything great about the person other than you thought that he would win the election or whatever it was. Well, I remember when we were talking about him back in the day, and you didn't have no love for him. I love your little laugh. You remind me of the when you do that. It's like the
my little snigger. Yes,
I'll tell you off air what that reminds me of, and if you don't think I'm busting your balls too much as a friend, I'll say it on air sometime. But you do have that, you know. Anyway, you got it. But so Jean-Claude Juncker, bad. European Union, bad. Tower of Babel,
the president of the European Commission. So they are effectively appointed by the Council of European Leaders.
Yep.
So the European governments get together and decide amongst themselves which former politician who's now being pensioned off in his respective home country, whom should we put in charge of running the European Commission, which basically runs the entire bureaucracy of the European Union.
Yeah.
So that is effectively how Jean-Claude Juncker became appointed.
Yep.
They had some sort of pretend election within the European Parliament in which he won, I believe. But that was effectively meaningless. It was merely an advisory vote because it still always boils down to the European countries, because the nation
funny
states,
you say that. It's funny you say that, because Britain had the contestant number of a grand total of 3 votes, but somewhere like Malta had a grand total of 7.
Well, I mean, you know, Malta has always been a
massive
one of the giants of European politics.
Exactly. Amazing. That's
when it comes right down to it, we'll always have
votes because they were the most bombed place in the Second World War. Perhaps that's how it works.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was either.
Oh no, it was. Malta was definitely the most bombed place in the Second World War. Yes.
Never mind.
It was pretty much reduced to rubble because the entire German Luftwaffe descended quite regularly on Malta because it was that little rock in the middle of the Mediterranean that was held by the British and which got in the way of German resupply to Rommel.
It was not against it,
hence, no other place was so heavily bombed as Malta was during the entire Second World War.
In that case, then, I've got a question. Germany was supposed to pay a lot of reparations. Did they pay any reparations to Malta?
Something tells me they more than likely didn't have to pay Malta. Yes, the end, it always depends on political muscle. I mean, who knows? Perhaps Malta was the one country whom Germany had to heavily reimburse, which is why they now get 7 votes when it comes to the European presidency.
Yes.
All right, look at this. I just got this from RPR. This is Barcelona Declaration, adopted at the Euro-Mediterranean Conference, 27/28/11/95. I mean, look at this monster. I was gonna start. I was like, oh, what did he send me? And I started reading, and I was like, oh, look how far that cursor's gone down.
Oh, it's a brief summary, isn't it? I particularly like the fact that one of them is called Ferrero Waldner.
It's called what?
Benita Ferrero Waldner. It's kind of interesting that someone should be called Benita. I mean,
Benita, like Mussolini.
Yeah, you can see. Can you see there, just about 4th or 5th row down?
Would that be the female Mussolini, Brett? Would that be the female Mussolini, Benita?
That would be the female of Benito. Yes, and you just wonder how that name can still survive in this day and age.
Yeah, it'd be, in other words, be like somebody calling their child, Hitler, or
Well, it was.
Adolf.
I can only refer to a little anecdote that I still remember way back when I was on the continent, and someone introduced us to their cousin who was called Adolf so and so, and there was a sort of pregnant pause, and the cousin left, and then we all looked at him, and eventually someone broke the silence and said, "Why is your cousin called Adolf?"
Well, I mean, what do you say, right?
Which there was no response. Yes.
Well, because somebody named him Adolf, that's why he's called that.
My favorite.
Point me out to that. Where am I at? What bullet point? Where did you see that name?
1, 2, 3,
Austrian.
4, 5. I think it's the 5th line down, 5th bullet point down. Benita Ferrero Waldner.
Oh yeah, right there.
I like Mr. Dick Spring.
I'll be
You would.
And so that's a first name. I mean, what does Benita mean? It sounds something like beautiful, like Benito. It would
I bet it's
like
Bonnie.
Yes,
I wonder what
it will be. It will be pretty or beautiful.
Pretty, yeah. Okay. I guess, but I'm with you. After the use that it's
Dick
had
Spring from Ireland, yes, definitely. Well spotted first ranker.
Oh, this is definitely going on and on, though. I'll tell you that. I'm going to redo this, so thanks a lot,
you're always
RPR.
wondering whether there will be someone in the list called Osama bin Laden. Just.
I've tried different things, Britt. I had a live stream where I just was, or maybe no, it wasn't a live stream. I did a video where I did Vault 7, and man, I was going line by line. I don't know. Maybe it's because I was just starting out. I might try something like that in the future, but at the time, there was no interest in that. I mean, I'm not going to blame myself or whatever. Maybe it was the wrong time or whatever. I don't know. But I don't think people if you're interested in that too, there's other venues that are breaking down that kind of thing. But remember that Vault 7?
I remember Vault 7. Yes, that was.
Well, I mean, we ain't gonna go there. I'm not trying to segue to that right at the moment.
It was WikiLeaks that basically
yeah,
launched one particular batch of documents and called it Vault 7. Yes.
Yeah, and instead of going into that, matter of fact, I kind of want to know this, because we know that the WikiLeaks founder, for one thing, let me start this way by saying that let's remember Julian Assange, who I just heard Hillary Blaggart on her first interview after her loss, and talking about WikiLeaks and Russia, same thing. That's what she said. So she was talking about Julian Assange. Does everybody remember how he got his start with WikiLeaks? Who he was the darling of what party in his start? Does anyone remember?
I believe it was the Democrats.
Yes. Oh yeah, they flew him around in private jets. He was dropping bombs left and right. And now it's the other. Here's what they didn't know about Julian Assange. He don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. If somebody comes to him with some stank nasty that you've done, he's going to show the world. That's the way it is. So now, I hear. So this is the question. After listening to this wannabe Maoist, and I was just going to steal it, but to quote Lionel Nation, this Maoist oven mitt wearing dictator wannabe that can't take credit for anything that she's done wrong and takes credit for things that she hasn't done, like telling people that she was named after them because they climbed Mount Everest and she was born before this person was known. I mean, all these things. Hillary. Oh my God. So here's the question: Do you folks
an airport in Yugoslavia under fire?
Yeah. Well, and I know I was digressing, Britt. So here's the question: all that to ask this, Britisher. What about Julian Assange? Do you think that since he's in your country, even though he's in a
Colombian?
No, it's not Colombia. It's it's now Nicaragua. What is it? Doesn't matter. Ecuador. He's an Ecuadorian consul, but he is on English, surrounded by English. Do y'all think that maybe he should just be given asylum in your country and be able to come out and get the sunshine? Do you think that he should be being held prisoner like that, or what?
If you don't mind, I don't mind going first on this one.
Go ahead.
Personally, he's more than welcome to, in my opinion, but if he wants to stay alive, I say no, don't do that. Just stay where you are, to be honest with you. People will go, oh, right, you're going to go down conspiracy theory where Clintons will kill people and stuff like that. There's too much evidence.
Don't go down a conspiracy theory, and I'm not cutting you off. I want you to go on as long as you want. What would happen to him? I mean, if he left right now, do you think he could sneak out of there anyway?
Not without the world's media picking it up, no. Because I personally think that there is a contract out on him, personally. That's the reason why he's in the consulate. Without going into it. From the Clintons.
Contract from who?
From the Clintons. Huh? From the Clintons.
Okay. So you think the Clintons got to have a flat-out Seth Rich style, take him out kind of contract?
No, I don't think it's a takeout as in like they're going to shoot him in the head. It's more of a case of, oh, you somehow managed to have a house fire, or oh, that plane that you're on has managed to
or even get him back here and put him in prison forever in a solitary confinement.
That won't happen to him. If he ever leaves, that won't happen to him. He will die.
You don't think so? Well, now, because I know the Britishers over there probably chewing on the inside of his cheek and biting his fingernail. What kind of evidence, would we have that would support that kind of idea? I mean, why would we think something outrageous like that? It sounds a little
there was, I can't remember exact names. I'm sure that you, as you talk about it a lot more with different people, I'm sure you would have the names, but there's at least one reporter that's had his house set on fire, or a house was on fire and he was found shot inside. There's also planes that have been managed to crash that have never had any turbulence and anything else like that. That are private jets. Yes, it does happen, but I think that's happened to two separate people that had problems with Clinton. There's also somebody who got shot on their doorstep as well, as far as I remember. But those are the ones that I can pick off the top of my head. The one who got shot was trying to expose the Clintons' foundation, as in how they launder the money through that.
You mean the black guy that dropped the weights on his neck and got? I think that was the one you're talking about.
Yes, the one who's apparently
I'm looking
committed
right now
suicide.
because I'm not the greatest with names either. But we could go to because I got 33 here. There's so many people going from I really, it's really killing me that I can't think of this. The one of the biggest ones before Seth Rich, the one that stuck in everybody's mind, but it goes all the way back to Arkansas. And there was someone, not Hillary Clinton's, Chelsea Clinton's real father.
That's the one.
Isn't he still around? He's still alive and kicking, I do believe.
So they say.
Yeah. But you can look at the pictures too up there, man. Look, I'm going to go off the rails with you, right there with you, because there's so many problems with our political system. Has maybe like a skinned knee, but the Clintons and Hillary herself, she has 2 broken arms, a broken leg, and Alzheimer's. I mean, she's at the point now where she's not only, I heard some people saying today that were pundits on the left. There's this black dude that comes on CNN quite often. I can't remember his name. Got really flat top haircut, straight laced dude. He's just one of them. He looks like a right winger really in his presentation, but he's one of them straight up stick up, where lefties. And she's hurting her side. She's the only, Mitt Romney, McCain, Mondale, we can go back to wherever you want to go. There's not been a case where right after someone lost a race for president, they wrote a book about why they lost it, blaming everyone but themselves. You get what I'm saying, gentlemen? That hasn't happened. And I actually tried to avoid this today, but I'll tell you what. This Clinton thing, because Brett, you love to just get on my nerve and just stomp that nerve. It's like, oh, I'm bored tonight. I will piss with the ogre. Watch this. Ogre, did you ever consider that maybe Mrs. Clinton will be running again soon, sir, for president even?
Oh, she will. She will. She will run. She's not dead.
I see you. You're there with your hot cocoa and you're just chortling with the mic off. I've got it tonight. No, I don't. I think if she does, what will it be for, common sense guy?
Oh, it'll be president again.
Buddy, dog catcher. She's got nothing. She has. This book is her death knell. This is the end of Hillary Clinton right here.
If I may ask, didn't she say that she was going to stop running?
She said she wasn't going to run for mayor of New York.
Yeah. The last I heard that said that she was going to run again in the next election, straight after this last election that just happened.
But I have heard, like the first ranker, she did apparently recently say something along the lines of she is tired of standing for things. But I've got the feeling this is very much a sort of statement that all politicians make. As in, oh, I have absolutely no leadership ambition whatsoever. And they always have to be, set upon by their friends and, other.
Tell me I should do it, right, Brett? Tell me I should encourage me. I don't feel like I should go on
in order to represent the people just simply for the good of their country.
Yes.
They can't possibly say no to that. So they always go along and tell everybody that they don't want it anymore, because of course they're not doing it purely for narcissistic reasons. No,
so you're not buying it, Brett. You're not buying that. You still think that maybe what?
That woman, I think, common sense guy is correct. That woman will definitely run again.
What's her qualifications in your mind? I mean, I'm not trying to just bring you out, but really,
she is the most qualified candidate for president ever.
No, really. I mean, but in your mind, do you think that if you were an American would you vote for her to be your senator or your congressman or your president or something to that caliber? You know, your member of parliament or whatever. Council member.
I would sooner eat broken glass. But when it comes to Hillary Clinton, what is her qualification? Her qualification is that 50% of the country voted for her.
A little bit more, but I'll tell you this. Listen, they had her on there and she was asked, oh, what's your, and they were saying, oh, well, while she was in the White House as first lady, jobs and Bill Clinton, Britt, have you ever heard me say a bad word about Bill Clinton, President Clinton?
Yes.
Well, okay, maybe you have a bad word, but what do you know is my overall feelings about Bill Clinton, President Clinton?
I believe you thought his presidency was decent.
It was good. Yes, he was good, man. I love the guy. I tell you, me and Mrs. Ogre were just watching on that note, man, and it was showing some whole things. Oh, Slick Willie was up there and was like, I need you to give me your hands and then give me your hearts. And I tell you what I need more than anything else is I need your prayers. And just to look at, I know that was a bad Bill Clinton, but just to look at the guy. You got to say one thing. You said it, Britisher. We got to agree on this. When it come down to them being at that local fair, what happened, Brett?
Oh, I mean, he was the master campaigner. Nobody campaigned quite as well as Bill Clinton. No. Bill Clinton was a phenomenal campaigner, and everybody acknowledged it. I mean, even his political opponents acknowledged that nobody could campaign.
You forget the young girls he's humping now. You forget the women he may have taken it from. You honestly do. You have that in the back of your mind, but when you even, and I've never met the man. Imagine like when being in his presence when he's there with that powerful, persuasive, I would say Britisher, very male thing. For whatever reason, evolution has not gifted that I've ever seen, because even Margaret Thatcher, I'll bring her up because I do know how I feel about her too. She's great. But that certain ability, man, I think it's a very male character.
Margaret Thatcher was never liked. Margaret Thatcher was never popular.
No, I know it. I like
people who were voted for her because they thought she was necessary or because they had a certain respect for her. But nobody ever liked Margaret Thatcher.
Nobody ever liked her.
Nobody, no.
No, I can second that notion. Nobody liked Margaret Thatcher, but
her mama liked her.
In a political sense, maybe as a personal sense, maybe people did, but as a political sense,
there's like two English people right on top of the other. No one ever liked her.
I mean, this just takes me back. You know, do you remember when Trump was first elected, and you had all these people on Twitter saying like, "Oh, my 5-year-old daughter turned to me and asked if the concentration camps were going to be built," and you thought to yourself, "How could a 5-year-old, think of this? This is obvious."
How does the 5-year-old know about the existence of concentration camps already? Yes.
Yeah, and you already knew that they were constructed. Then, but now, as Ogre said about Thatcher's mother, I could just imagine a very young Miss Thatcher going, okay, I'm not gonna do a Thatcher. I'm not gonna try to do a Thatcher. That's not gonna work.
Vince Foster, by the way, is the name we were all trying to think of earlier. Very famous.
Yeah.
James, but here we go. James McDougal, Mary
That's
Mahoney,
the one.
Mary Mahoney, Vince Foster, Ron Brown, C. Victor Reisner, Paul Tully, Ed Willie, Jerry Perks, James Bunch, James Wilson, Kathy Ferguson. You getting the idea? I can go on and on. Bill, these are all people that didn't die of, they're older. So these are people that died and should not have. That was the,
suspicious. Suspicious.
Yeah, and there are cases where there's natural deaths where it's still like when you start seeing that a lot of these are drowning and bumping their heads, or it's like, wow, because it's, here we go, Gandy. I mean, should I continue? There's so many, and I did hit the ones that we were looking for. The one I was looking for earlier was Vince Foster. I mean, that stinks to high heaven. And of this list right here of 35, there's actually higher. It's upwards of 100 questionable deaths that surround Hillary and Bill Clinton, directly surround their campaigns, their people, their staff.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Close, not the cousin and the cousin of the cousin of their staff that they've never met. People that they've knew that were in their deal.
And who were against the Clintons as well, or knew something about it.
It's unprecedented. I mean, it is unprecedented to the point where even this way live, I don't care if y'all call me a really crazy conspiracy theory. This is the truth. When I start going down that list of names, because Britisher, as much as you know, the old fat boy from Texas wants to take everybody to think that he's the toughest thing that's ever been made. You know, he sways left and right, mostly. And the fact of the matter is, man, these people have folks killed. It makes me nervous to talk about it. I wouldn't want to, because all that Alex Jones does, Roger Stone, that whole lot. And I said Roger Stone, Brett. There you go. I like him and all. I love Roger Stone actually. But because I was asked by a good friend of mine one time, British, if I'd buy a used car from him. Probably not.
Thank you.
I retract my former statement. Probably not. But he has his somewhat uses. But man, they trot these people out, and the dead ones and the living ones, be it Bill Clinton's illegitimate son, be it Juanita Broderick, be it this litany of dead people that died in weird situations. Some of them had to have sent back. Anyway, there you go. Boom. Wow, I said I wasn't going to talk about what happened, Brett, and there you go. I did it. Sorry, Common Sense.
I've got one thing to add. There is a particular case with Hillary Clinton when she was first taking on one of her major cases. This was with a 13-year-old girl that was it's all documented. It's one of the most documented cases of Hillary Clinton. There is video, there is audio, there's lots of evidence about it. It's all over YouTube and everything. It was one of their first cases as a prosecutor. The 13-year-old girl got picked up by somebody that she kind of knew from one of the factories, and she was brutally raped in the car. Brutally raped. There was DNA evidence. There was
where Hillary said, where Hillary knew the dude did it. Yeah.
Yes, basically exactly what Olga just said. Hillary knew the dude did it because she even has been caught on tape saying this. Yeah, I asked him, and the dude said to me, "Yep, he did it," but I had to get him off because that was my job. So what she did to discredit this girl was to say that this 13-year-old girl, and remember, this is back in the 70s and 80s. When promiscuity wasn't actually a big thing, when most people would wait until at least 16 or 18, to the point where she was saying that this girl was sexually active and was having a sexual relationship with this man, to the point where, I don't want to be too graphic online, but there was blood everywhere for particular reasons.
Well, and you know what? They also defended it in another way, and saying that, it comes in another way that we got to think of, and that is, it's not so much, and this is the consensus that I think is across the boards. It's not so much that she did her job as an attorney. You will get disbarred if you know your client's guilty. I've got a lawyer I've had for years. Every time I've ever been going to court for anything, the first thing he asked me is, "What's up?" I've always told him the blunt, honest truth. You have to tell your attorney the truth. They have to know. If he said anything, that's the one thing that's still protected. I mean, the doctor-client thing, you seen what they did to that girl, Common Sense guy, the cops arrested her for not giving the blood. That's all going away. But for the time being, it's still the lawyer privileges there. Anyway, I mean, I'm going to go off on another tangent too far. We got very little time left, boys. 15 minutes at best. No joke this time. I've got to split. And the main reason I can smell tea being done, and once I get done eating, I've got to do some other work that I don't want to do it. Appreciate the time, though, man. It seems like day in and day out, the British is always there for me.
Cheers.
No, I was taking a deep breath. I was going to say same with you, Common Sense guy. Same thing, man. Day in and day out. I even know, I mean, we all know that follow you, Common Sense. You've taken time off because of whatever. You've taken a little bit of time off, and you still managed to find this time for me. That, that means more to me that I'm going to gush about right now. Let me just put it that way.
I'm going to be using that to explain what I'm going through at the moment at the end for my final thought.
Yeah, well, and I might as well say it now as we go to our final thoughts, unless somebody's got something, when I'm done with this, unless somebody's got something on this last thing we've been talking about, and then we'll move on to our last words, gentlemen. But in the future, I think it has been decided, and 21 people are watching now. Other people will see it later. I will say it a few more times. That way, everyone will get to know it, and then once it's in practice, it'll be known. But when we do police state, whether or not it's at the Britishers channel or my channel here, I think from now on, it's going to be the Britisher, myself, and the Common Sense guy, and the guest. And why? Because we're sexist. Why? I mean, with the reason, because we're, patriarchy. That's why. And that's it. Is it because we don't like Amanda Wolfchild? No, she's just, men are funnier than women. And, take and read into that, whatever you want. I shouldn't have said Amanda's name, but so I did it on purpose. No, but that's the reason why is because too many cooks spoil the soup. That is just as simple as it is. And as for myself, I've been in situations, and the Britisher has also, I know I can speak for us too, where, the conversation is not up our street, but it's a good guest, and we got to pull our dues. And it's easier for us to do that when there's not, and don't get me wrong, Amanda Wolfchild may even pop into some of these things. You never know. She's always late any bloody way, but she would be probably the only other one. But it's easier in those situations if there's not a bunch of other people. So boom, that's it, Britt. I hope that was that. I didn't even talk to you about doing that public service announcement, but that is the way it's going to be. It's just so much easier for me, Britisher. I mean, when we're coming down to somebody like Razor Fist or Matt Christensen, I'm going to be honest, man, where everybody can hear it. It's the last bloody thing I need. And the last thing I did was what, Britt? I pawned it off on you. That's the last thing that you heard about this was, hey, Britisher, you think that maybe you might want to do the list of people that will be on the show? And then we got it. And so, it's come down to that. So I really feel like at that point, we just got to have the three of the people that are always here in church, that we know each other. We know what's going to happen as far as the three of us. And we don't get out. It sucks because even no matter who you are, other people that are here, our guests and ourselves, you'll get your toes stepped on. You don't get to say what you're going to say. There's too many. Everybody's waiting to talk. That's it. That's my diatribe. So yeah, boys, it's coming up on 3 hours. Britt, again, in common sense, I don't know what to say, boys, but 3 hours on a Wednesday, y'all are second to none. Are we going to do church Friday? Where are we doing church, Britt?
I would assume we will be doing it. Yes.
Where are we going to do it at?
I would assume we're doing it on my channel.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I just don't want to. In fact, probably, maybe I should ask you when we went on it. That'd be good. It's good. We'll get our feet wet over there. So remember, if you're listening now. So hey, look, man. Everybody knows the drill. I'm done. I'm over. I've imposed on my friends long enough. We've had a wonderful conversation, as usual on these weekdays, and even on Police State. It's went here, there, and the other place. But I believe that every voice that was heard tonight, every voice that was heard, whether it was through text in the chat or here among us, was important. And I'm happy to be up here on the Cyber Pass. So I think everybody knows the drill. And first ranker, you're low man on the totem pole. So we're going to just do our final words. Nobody needs me to explain it, I hope to God, because I do it all the time. So we'll go ranker. We know the drill. Common sense.
Thank you, Reverend. Well, I believe this will be the last time I come on for a while, because starting Monday next week, I'll piss off to another part of Sweden for my military service. You'll perhaps see me in chat, and should the Reverend or should the Britisher allow it, maybe sometime in the weekends, I could come onto the Cyber Pass or church as a tourist, if you may. But otherwise, you'll most likely just see me on Twitter. Thank you. I'll now pass over the word to the Common Sense guy.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much. It's a bad thing that you're not going to be staying around, because I actually quite like it when you actually talk. you got a lot to add to the conversation most of the time. But saying all that, as Ogre said, I am going to be taking a break. I'm not sure how long it's going to be. I'm going to be playing my victim card. So Charizard, I choose you. I have sort of some problems with fibromyalgia. I have a protruding lower L5 disc. I also have some other problems like sleep apnea and stuff like that. But basically, when I was born, I was pretty much effed from the beginning. But I try not to let that get me down. But at this moment in time, there's shifting in the weather, and my medication's not doing too well. So everything's not going particularly well at the moment. I can't normally sit up for particular lengths of time. So actually making videos for me at the moment is very, very hard. So I've decided that I'm going to take time off and rest up a little bit, to be honest, and try and mix my medications so I can try and sort things out a bit quicker. I went to the hospital, as I said today, to get medication done again. But I will still be doing live streams as long as British and Ogre wants me on. I can normally stomach doing around about 2 to 3 hours. That's not too bad. So I might still do some small little videos, but I am taking a break in general. So don't expect a video every day. But I might do a couple of videos. I'm not sure. It depends. On that note, I think I've played my victim card to a T, so I'm going to move on.
Well, we definitely look forward to you producing videos again at some point, because I believe you said that you had some subjects lined up, and one of them was Tony Blair.
Yes.
So the idea that this man should be getting off easy is too much for me to bear. So please do recover as quickly as possible, if only for Tony Blair's sake. Yes, what do I have to say? I don't really know where to start, really. I think I'll just begin with I'll just pick up the fairly obvious subject, which has occupied me quite a bit today. And that was the subject which got me quite literally to sit down on a bench in the middle of the town centre today. And that was when the story hit that Count Dankula was out of court and it wasn't over yet, and that he's going to be back in November. Because, I mean, it's difficult to think of new things to say about the whole Count Dankula story, because in the end, it always just cuts back to free speech. I'm sorry, but once upon a time, this was once the hallmark of in a way, a free nation. I mean, some of you may have been around when Razorfist was on, and I just had to interject and insist that it was not the Americans who invented the idea that innocent until proven guilty, and that the British had done it the other way round until that point. I'm sorry, but that just wasn't the case. Britain, the home of freedom. It was that the Americans then basically took it on to another level. But, I mean, of course, Britain then continued to evolve. One of the problems Britain has is that it simply doesn't have a written constitution, which guarantees its people any particular rights. So those are the problems which kind of lead to a Count Dankula situation, whereby he can't take recourse to some higher law which protects him. So if the Scottish government is just silly enough to have passed a particularly stupid law, then there is no higher law that is there to which one can take recourse and to which one can go to the Supreme Court or some such thing and argue that this stupid law effectively interferes with a more universal law that is of a higher standing. That simply doesn't exist in that regard. One doesn't have a recourse in that way. I'm just saying that because a few people have asked me that very question. So we are effectively lumbered with whatever laws parliamentarians here happen to pass. Count Dankula has the misfortune of living in Scotland, and I'm not meaning that in a kind of in the terms of the rivalry between the Scots and the English. I'm meaning that in quite a specific way, that Scotland has been heavily left-wing for years and years. Thatcher's unpopularity in Scotland pretty much did for the Conservatives in Scotland. It has been a red bastion. I mean, it was pretty much almost entirely Labour for decades. When the Scottish nationalists took over, because they have largely displaced Labour, it was by actually outflanking them on the left. So one didn't put forward a less socialist argument. One, in fact, put forward a more socialist argument in order to defeat Labour. Now, you have to consider that this entire social justice narrative has been, heavily at home on the left, particularly the hard left, for the better part of 20 years or more. So you can imagine how it has kind of taken a hold of Scotland. And that's why he is perhaps in just about the most unfortunate place you could be when it comes to the British Isles. And one just hopes that this could be some sort of turning point. I don't believe, I don't perfectly understand the way Scottish law works and the way the Scottish courts work. I mean, over here we have a distinct difference in England between magisterial courts and crown courts. And if a crown court basically does something, it still doesn't count as a precedent. But if there is an appeal to a crown court decision, so in a higher court, then that counts as a legal precedent. Now, I'm not sure how things work in Scotland, because people have been, again, asking, could it be a legal precedent if Count Dankula wins? So I'm not sure whether, from a purely legal perspective, whether it would represent a legal precedent, which then later court cases could take recourse to. But I think just on a practical level, were he to win, he would more than likely his case would more than likely discourage the prosecution service from taking action on a similar matter in the near future. Now, of course, that would only influence Scotland, not England, but I could well imagine that if the English prosecutors see that it doesn't work in Scotland, they would think twice of trying it in England. So Count Dankula, if he wins, could actually secure the position of free speech, especially online free speech, at least to a certain extent. But then, given that the law is still in flux, given that they are actually still at the point of writing more law that will govern free speech online, particularly with, Theresa May having made statements regarding how she wants heavy regulation online, that everything that applies offline should entirely apply online, which seems a sort of strangely veiled threat, the way she brings it forward. Those sort of things kind of don't give you a great deal of hope, but at least it might be a small victory if he wins. Is really keep our fingers crossed, wish him all the best, and hope he clobbers the bastards. So that will be all for me for now. So over to you, Mr. Ogre.
Oh, thanks a lot, Brett. That was wonderful. Oh, thanks everybody that showed up tonight. Well, I got something completely different. What came to my mind tonight more than anything else, actually scribbled myself a couple notes to make sure I remembered it in the haze of all the great ideas that get flung by me throughout the evenings as I usually meet with the Britisher and Common Sense guy, but we get lucky, get the first ranker, other people come by. Especially like that Zero Cool, Britisher was just telling me what a great guy he was and what wonderful ideas and how he really appreciated his low key and the way that he really kept his tone down and made it so that we could all understand him without, it was as if we were having shards of glass driven into our ears. So what I wrote down was crack the whip, because when that was mentioned, it's so important. Look, gender roles are a thing. It's not a thing that needs to be discussed as in, look, let me just tell you the truth. Man, imagine the days when the missus was able, because of society and the way it was, to be at home in her high heels, you know, in her nice dress, making biscuits or maybe some boiled dinner, a bit of beef Wellington, fried chicken, whatever it is that you may like, keeping the house clean, having time to gossip with her friends in the neighborhood, taking care of the children, teaching them to be, in the case of the British people, probably strange, I think is what the British moms teach the boys to be. Weird. But the gender roles are there for a reason. It's why would anyone want to look at why feminism? So you look at the situation I just described, where a woman, I mean, in the old days, I know it seems stereotypical to us now, but no, man, I remember my grandmother. She got her hair done once a week, but it always looked perfect because she slept with this elaborate thing on that kept it right while she was sleeping. And I don't think she ever moved while she slept. Not sure she had an emotion in her heart if she had one of those. But she looked perfect, man. She wore her best. When she did smoke, she smoked 5 packs of Pall Malls a day. The gender roles were there, man. You know, her husband, I don't think that my grandma ever worked at in fact, I'm trying to, the one I was just talking about, now I'm searching my mind, never did, to use the vernacular where they're from in Cumberland, Maryland, never did a hand's turn of work a day in her life. But not back then. She was revered. Her husband was a dispatcher on the railroad line, someone that was known in town. She didn't, you know, be a secretary or whatever. And somewhat, in fact, in her day, the women that did that, well, I mean, they weren't the luckiest people in the world. Maybe they didn't find a good husband that would have a good job, or maybe they did, heaven forbid, at the time, get pregnant and, you know, had a child and had to support that somehow, without, you know, some deadbeat dad at the time. It seems to me, though, now with this whole, I mean, you know, this guy, he's at a casino, cops come running out at him. He runs, jumps the fence, and he's upset because, like everyone else that ran in any direction, was detained by the police in this call, whether it was, you know, a spurious call or a you know, in earnest, doesn't matter. I mean, if the cops are called somewhere, I don't know. If I was a police officer, I'm called somewhere, and there's gunplay, everybody running, I have my weapon. I want to go home at night. That's the end thing. I guess that's what they say, but that's what I feel too. So to transfer this kind of hysteria, this idea that why should we make women victims when the woman it seems that feminism is fighting against is this one that I described, with her high heels on, makeup on, best dress on, every day she can, looking her best, wanting to be there for her husband, being a good mom, making, you know, some kind of beef roast is in the oven, or meatloaf or something, who knows what, and everything's spotlessly clean. And she takes her time to watch the daily talk shows and look at the appliances they're selling and decide how the money is spent in the house. Y'all know, I mean, I don't want to get a lot of input, and I need to wrap this up too, because I could go on and on about this. There are roles in society. Some of those roles are played by the sexes. Some are played to a certain extent by the races. At this time, it seems to me that the race that I happen to be is playing the, you know, the evil whipping post, the ambiguous evil demon, the societal devil, the adversary that stands between freedom and degradation because of my skin color. I mean, and Lord knows that they're not doing it by saying I can't drink at a drinking fountain. They're not doing it by saying I can't sit at Walgreens and have a hamburger with the other people there. But I would say that right now, and this is the end for me, but right now, the tone and how I feel in my heart of hearts, deep down inside, is that because of my skin color, I'm assumed to have no culture. Be it a meme or not, it's a meme for a reason. I have no culture. I'm at base racist, if I even care about my ancestry. I'm a bigot and a nationalist and a alt-righter. If I would even condescend to want my country to do well, not even mentioning a race. It's getting to the point to where we need to realize there's gender roles for a reason. And there's stereotypes for a reason. So look, folks, be good to your friends, be good to your family members, be good to your loved ones. Embrace who you are and where you come from. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing, your friend, your family member, or your loved one, regardless of their race, seems to be so huge you'll never be able to forget about it. Because listen, at a time you think not, your life, everything you know, every cause you could ever love will be gone like a fart in a noisemaker.